I now call the regular school board meeting for Forest Lake Area Schools, Wednesday, August 26th to order. Please join us while we recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Member Clerk, please take the roll call of attendance.
All right. Member Rebeline.
Here.
Member Antonsen is here. Member Tyson.
Here.
Member Corcoran.
Here.
Member Castle.
Here.
And Member Christensen.
Here.
And everybody's here.
Great. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yes, I have discussion now.
Yeah, Member Tyson.
I would like to see more collaboration and better communication on what's on the agenda. Tonight, I'm looking at 7.1 and review the vendor list, and I just feel at this time of year with school on the doorstep that we could be looking at safety and security or other items like that.
Yes.
And I'm not sure if the vice chair was aware of the vendor list review and discussion. I mean, I know I wasn't, and I was out of town and then I just saw it. So if we could have better collaboration and communication, that would be great.
I will take that under advisement. We
Thank
did
you.
discuss the vendor list last August, which is why it came back again this August. That was a commitment I made
Well, it was
then.
new to the agenda last year
It was.
without notice. We
And-
typically don't have it on there.
I see. And then safety and security, I spoke with Superintendent Jacobson about earlier today. We're going to address that in early September, and we're going to expand that discussion some more. Please reach out to me if you have questions on that as we put that together.
And I think last year was the first year we had the review of the vendor list, and it was put on by former member Hageland and yourself. So I just think more notice and more communication and collaboration around what goes on the agenda would be very helpful for all of us to work together.
Sure. And as always, if you have suggestions for the agenda, please reach out, and I'll be happy to consider them.
Great, thank you.
Do we have any other discussion on the agenda?
I'm curious to know how much notice is enough notice for something to be on the agenda. If it's something that the two of you work to put together and you put it out I can't even remember the dates, the Friday before for us.
Yep.
And then it goes public Monday. So
Yeah, and usually I
if it's
ask,
if it's something that we talked about a year ago, that it's going to be a yearly thing.
We didn't agree that it was a yearly thing. My suggestion was that Finance Committee could look at this, and then if they had things that were found about the board chairs on finance, then it could come to the board. We get a board bill in every packet, so I'm feeling like maybe it wasn't necessary to upload 70 different pieces of documents into the board book when we get a bill run every week that we get, every month, twice a month when we have a meeting.
Yeah,
So, and I just think the topics around school starting would be more important for parent listeners or our community listening as well.
I find it just a lot easier to look at this document as far as yearly totals for vendors, and so I just don't see why it's a problem.
Well, it's not a problem. I'm just suggesting that it could be done a different way at Finance Committee instead of like right at the board table for the vendor list.
Okay.
okay. Is there any other discussion on this? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the motion carries and the agenda is adopted. Which brings us to our first topic tonight. We have a presenter here from the Minnesota School Board Association to discuss strategic plan and the board's self-evaluation. I'd like to welcome Gail Gilman.
Thank you, Chair Rebeline. I appreciate that. It's good to be here with all of you this evening. I drove up I live in New Ulm, so I drove there, and then I was sharing with Superintendent Jacobson that I picked up a MSBA vehicle in St. Peter and then got to tackle the traffic and all those fun things on the way up. But it was a lovely drive, and it's a lot better than when it's 60 below wind chill and it's icy.
Yes.
I'll take this anytime. So it's good to be here. It's good to see all of you. When I walked in the door, I said, it feels like coming home, because I spent a lot of time here a few years ago when we were working on your strategic plan, so it's good to be back. Obviously, I've interacted with folks in that since that time, but just haven't been back here on site. So again, good to be back. I'm looking forward to visiting with you about your board self-evaluation as well. The last time that the board took it, you probably noticed, was in, I think it was 2022. It was shortly after the strategic plan had been wrapped up. And so you were probably due to do this again and have a discussion. And I think it may tie into a next strategic plan as well. But I think we'll be talking about that in a little bit too. So for those of you that I've not met, I feel like I have interacted with each of you before, but I have been with School Boards Association since 2017. My educational background is in family and youth education. My degrees are from the University of Minnesota, and I was on the faculty at the U of M for a long time working with families and youth. And then I had an opportunity to segue and work with Minnesota Board on Aging, which was a pretty perfect experience at the time. I could utilize my skills, a lot of the caregiving, and my parents were getting older. Both have since passed away, but those skills were not, they were helpful for me personally, and then certainly for the folks that I served. And then joining the School Boards Association, my interest in that is I'm a former school board member, and some of you are aware that I served on the New Ulm Board of Education for 2 terms, and over those years I served as the vice chair most of the time, and then usually clerk if I wasn't vice chair. I also represented our board on the Riverbend Education District, so got to learn a lot about special ed. So that was really special opportunity too. So my heart's still kind of with the New Ulm board, but it's actually more fun now to be interacting with boards around the state. So I'm happy to be here. It would be helpful for me, for each of you, I know you did your roll call, if you could just introduce yourself. Tell me how long you've been on the board, some of you longer than others, I know that, and I would love to hear one thing that you are really proud of about your school. So we can start on an end, or we can do popcorn, or I can pick somebody, volunteers. Would you?
I can start if we want to go end to end,
Okay, we can do that.
or you can go next to Mark if you want, Mark.
Sure.
So I'm in my 4th term, and I've been on the school board 17 years because we had the extra year added.
Mhm.
Some of us lucky ones got 5 years
Mhm.
in that term. And probably something I'm just really proud of is the upward trajectory our district has been on. Our buildings look fantastic, our
Mhm.
stadium, there's always needs, right?
Mhm.
But our academic plan with joining the gateway courses and joining our middle
Mhm.
school with our high school career pathways is just something I'm really proud of. And we did present at the leadership conference,
Mhm.
and Member Antonsen was there, and people were just really, really interested in how we've come so far with that and how we got to that place. So.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Member Thiessen. I appreciate that. Should we just go around the?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm Jill Christensen. I'm in my first term. One thing I'm very proud of is we're kind of turning around our enrollment numbers, which is really exciting. We were at sort of a declining, or stable, sort of declining
Mhm.
district for a little while there. And so I'm really excited to see the numbers creeping back up, and we have so many things to be proud of, and so I'm really proud that
Mhm.
that our enrollment is creeping up among other
Great.
things.
We don't often get to hear that from a
Yeah.
lot of schools, so you can pat yourselves on the back. Thank you, Member Christensen.
Hi, Julie Corcoran. I've been on, this is my 5th term, so it's almost, I guess it'll be 20 years this year. So I guess for me, I've just seen such an increase. For me, it's the bond that we passed. That I am truly being part of that process for many years, trying to get that done. I just feel like that was such a turning point for our district, where the pride level that I feel when we go to our buildings now, and just to see everything new and fixed up, and like say the stadium, the track. I mean, all those, just an extra bonus. And I just remember back when it wasn't that feeling like we feel now when
Yep.
you go into those buildings. And I feel like being part of that has just, it's to give me great pride. So, and I feel like all the students feel it too, to be proud to be there. So that's one of the things, most of the things I'm proud of.
Wonderful. Thank you, Member Corcoran.
Superintendent Jacobson.
We're gonna ask
Well,
Superintendent
sure.
Jacobson too.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is my second month as superintendent of the school
Yep.
district, 11th year in the school district. That's a challenge to narrow it down to one thing that I'm proud of. So I will just go with something that's real recent.
Okay.
And I would say our business community partnership with our school district. Just this morning, we hosted 48 business owners
Oh, wow.
who sat in small group circle, hosted by Mr. Caldwell, Molly Bonnet, Mike Miron at the high school, looking at what we do around employability skills and having conversations about that, and watching our business community get up early and clear their calendar and sit down and engage in us with this work to help us make sure that we're pointed at the right skills. That's unique in school districts, 48 business owners. And I think that is a real great asset here in Forest Lake that we have that.
That was a good share. That just worked very nicely for you today, and that is a very important partnership, too, to have that set up. Thank you.
Yeah, that's good news. So I'm Kurt Rebeline. This is my first term as well. And gosh, it's really hard to narrow it down. Superintendent Jacobson nailed that. So I wrote down a couple of things, but there are probably two things that I look back on and say one of my most proud of, especially in the last couple of years with this district, is when I was first elected, our academic performance was as low as it's probably ever been, and it's on the steady increase. And I think that's really critical, that school districts really focus hard on academics. And on a more board-specific level, I'm proud that this board has been bold and that we've been willing to address difficult topics at the state level, and that we're making major positive change, not just in our district, but across the state.
Okay. Thank you, Chair Rebeline.
Yeah, okay, very tough to narrow it down. And my name is Tessa Antonsen. I've been on the board for about 1.5 years. This is my first term. I am very proud that we hired Director Jacobson into the superintendent, and that we as a board, with our ongoing just little kerfuffles here and there, but we were able to come together for that great moment, and I'm very proud of that. I also was going to mention all of the CTE classes and programming that we have. I can't remember. I know the former superintendent was there, and a couple people that their names are escaping me, but they presented at the MSBA conference on their programming, and they did have a lot of interest from other school districts just because it's been so incredibly successful here. And I think we got a lot of great people brainstorming, and it leads into the partnerships with the businesses, because every week we're sitting here, everybody in awe with their jaws dropping about how much donations we get from the local community. So I just think that's a lot to be proud of right there.
Great. Thank you, Member Antonsen. Last but not least,
Mark Castle. This is my first term, 1.5 years, same as Tessa. And so the thing that I see the most is the offerings that we have for the students, the increased academic achievement that they have, and especially the number that are in the honors, that, what was it, like $3 million or something of scholarships
Wow.
that this last group attained, and that we offer the medical. I'm in manufacturing, so we have lots of manufacturing. There's a wide range of areas that the students can choose for career path, or some people go job to job and do a whole bunch of different jobs throughout their life instead of a career, but they're all there for them so that they can dive into them and have a good make up their mind. Even if it's not before they graduate, they have a lot to choose from and a lot of things that they can go for
Mhm.
in the district.
Very
So,
good.
and not only that, but also besides the business community, the veteran, the people in the military right now that recruit the students. My son happened to be one of those that was recruited, and
Wow.
he's doing very well in the National Guard and
Mhm.
and those things. So all of the paths, not just the academics is the most important thing, but all of the paths that the students have for when they are an independent person when they leave this district.
They're prepared for whatever the
Yes.
next phase is. Thank you, Member Kessel, I appreciate it. It's always fun to start with those things that you're proud of. Sometimes you surprise yourself. Sometimes it's like, oh yeah, I agree. And sometimes it's good to be first, and then the rest have time to think about it. And sometimes it's hard to be last in the discussion because all the good ideas have been shared, but you have an abundance of wonderful things that are happening, and so you can pat yourselves on the back. And actually, you're going to see that theme in your board self-evaluation as well, a lot of things that you can be proud of. So I'm not surprised with your comments. And actually, I'm just in awe with a few things here, too. The $3 million in scholarship coming from New Ulm, and we don't have quite, we're not quite there yet, but that's really something to be proud of, so thank you. So as we transition, with the board self-evaluation, I really would like this to be formal but informal. So if you have a question, feel free to ask away. If we pass some topic and then you want to go back to it, I am just fine with that. My time is your time. And so I want to make sure that you feel like your questions have been answered. I want you to feel like you've had discussion that will be helpful for the entire group throughout this. I have made notes on my copy of your board self-evaluation, so if you don't comment on some things, I might bring it up and just ask some probing questions for you. But I just want that to be kind of the stage, kind of the framework for us. Also, I always like to start with some, I call them community agreements for our discussion. So while you're in a formal setting, we can still be kind of informal with this. So the first one, the competence is in the group. You're going to get out of it what you put into it. And if you choose not to share, then, you know, I feel bad about that, but I will respect that as well. So competence is within the group. Trust your fellow board members that there'll be open and honest communication and discussion. Listen for understanding. When I was on the school board, I had a very seasoned board member who always said, and we've all heard this before, there's a reason why, you know, we have 2 eyes, 2 ears, and only 1 mouth. So listen for understanding. And there were some times when he kind of had to remind us of that as well. And I think about that every time I meet with a board, and I think about that every time I'm working with teams, whether it's, you know, my professional, with MSBA or personal life as well. Also respect all the different learning styles and personalities. And that can be interesting and challenging. When I was on the board, 7-member board, we had 7 individual folks who brought values to the table and had ideas about things. And while sometimes that can be a struggle and can be challenging, that can be the best thing that ever happened, because your community is as diverse as you are sitting around this table. And that was the same thing for us in New Ulm as well. So being able to share those ideas, respect those personalities, and those learning styles, I think is just important and just part of the process. And it's really what you would expect from your staff and from your students as well. It's one of those very foundational things that you share with them. Remember that as a board, you set the tone for this district. And I always had to think back to that too and remind myself, because sometimes, you know, we'd have some conversations that would be a little, I called them bumpy, or sometimes they got a little prickly. And then you'd have to remember that you are being looked up to by your school community. And so setting that tone in how you interact and how you make decisions and how you ask questions, I think is really important. And we all know that what happens at the board level starts trickling. And it can trickle in a good way, and it can trickle in a not so good way. And I also think, for me, an analogy is, you know, when you're operating things are going to operate well with the staff and with the students. And if it isn't, that becomes kind of the coffee room talk, and then the kids pick it up and it starts being the conversation at home. So I always like to remind boards of that. And we always reminded ourselves of that too when I was on the board, that, we may think differently, we might have different opinions. At the end of the day, we come together, we make a decision, and then we move forward with it. And we want to just set the tone that we would expect out of staff, students in our school community. Focus on achieving results as a team. And that's one of the things that's kind of challenging. It was for me too, because I came with my own ideas, and I'm like, I kind of like things to go this way, and maybe, a couple of my other fellow board members were thinking along the same lines. But focus on achieving the results and coming together as a team. And then the last community agreement is remember to thank yourself for your commitment. Chair Rebeline was commenting, sometimes do you have a life outside of board work? And sometimes I wondered that too. You have been given a real privilege to serve the families within this school district. They look up to you, don't take it lightly, and also just know that you are appreciated. Sometimes it might not feel that way when you're leaving a meeting at midnight or something like that, I'm not sure. Or, you're trying to figure out how you get the work life and board balance. But pat yourselves on the back for a job well done, for being willing to take the responsibility. And then looking at your superintendent, I always say the same thing to superintendents too. I mean, this is your job, obviously, but at the same time, thank you for what you do. It's probably, I'm gonna guess, something that you kind of live and breathe and you wake up thinking about, and you probably go to sleep thinking about, and everything in between. So as a team, just thank you to you for your service, and I know that you are appreciated. So those are the community agreements, and then I have a few resources that I would like to share with you for those that are watching the meetings and in the room too. The first one is the stages of board development, and at MSBA we talk about this for those of you that take phase 1, and some of you have taken it more recently than others, but we talk about the stages of board development there. We also talk about it in our phase 3, which is the high performing board. And I'm going to use a few resources to kind of set the stage that will roll us into your board self-evaluation.
Gail, just a quick note. We did have all of these documents posted online with our agenda, so anybody who's following at home,
okay,
these documents are available to them.
Perfect. So they've got that as well. That's
Correct.
Wonderful. So as you look at the board, the stages of board development, we're going to start with forming, storming, norming, performing, and then deforming. And sometimes this is a copyrighted resource. I also refer to deforming as transforming, perhaps. Sometimes deforming sounds a little bit negative, but that's how I look at it. Forming is something that you've had a chance to do in the last year or so, because this board welcomed some new board members, those of you that are in your first term. And just within the last month, not even 2 months, you welcomed to your board superintendent team a new superintendent as well. So this is kind of an exciting time because you're finding your way again in forming this new team. You've got elections coming up. We don't know the outcome of the elections, and so there's a chance that you could be forming a new team again. We don't know, and so this will fit very nicely for you at that point in time as well. But it's really that time when you are just getting to know one another. Sometimes it's a challenge because if you were like me, I came with some preconceived ideas of what board work was. I just thought we showed up and talked and made decisions. I mean, I was really at the simple level. I didn't realize that we were all going to have to speak with one voice. I didn't realize that we were going to make our decisions based on policies. It was kind of an eye-opener. So sometimes in that forming stage, you feel a little bit of the tug-of-war. I think that's pretty normal. It's kind of finding your way. You might be filled with a lot of anxiety, and for those team members who have been around for a while, there might be the anxiety of, oh my gosh, I've never worked with Gail before, I've never worked with Gail before, and so I don't know what it's going to be like interacting with her, or if it, whoever it might be. So that's really the forming. It's that orientation time. Storming is when it gets a little bumpy, I like to say, where, again, you might feel uncomfortable as a team. You're sorting out. You maybe learn that I like a lot of information and I like to ask a lot of questions, but I'm not a threat to anybody. I just like to know and ask questions. Whereas I had fellow board members that are like, oh my gosh, I wish she wouldn't ask so many questions. So it's kind of that time of storming where you're finding your way. Norming is where things start to kind of settle in, and you actually find yourself moving from me to we as a team. You're really starting to feel that we're coming together and we're making decisions. We've tackled some big things, we've tackled some little things, and everything in between. Performing is obviously where you want to be. It's when the wheels are just really clicking, things are moving very, very well. And it's like in a relationship where you kind of know what the other person's probably going to say or ask. So it gets to be kind of fun. There's one caveat to that, or one thing, maybe just a thought to keep in mind, is when you're performing, sometimes the board seems as if it's moving too fast, not to you, but to the rest of your school community, and you could possibly start looking like a rubber stamp. So in those instances, if you feel that would be a time where your chair would want to maybe be very intentional about saying, with a decision where it maybe wasn't a lot of discussion, but a big decision, and go around and make sure that everyone has a chance to speak one more time, or to explain that this is something that the board has been reviewing and researching and discussing for the last 3 months or 6 months, and now we're here this evening to take a vote. And then the reforming, transforming, deforming, that's something that you've also had an opportunity to do in the last few years, where you've said goodbye to folks who have been here for a number of years. And for some, it can be a real sad time. You want to celebrate the farewell and the goodbye, and thank them. And it can also be kind of a sad time too, because when you're a team, you're a team. And when team members switch over and change, that can be a real struggle sometimes. So I wanted to use that just to have you think about that framework. And as you think about yourselves, where do you see yourself right now? Any thoughts on that, if you had to pick a spot?
Well, I have
Member
a
Corcoran.
question. So,
Yes.
not all boards can get to the performing
Correct.
part.
Correct.
So we could be still in the storming, that's
Mhm.
what I believe we are, where there's not a lot of trust, and there's a lot of surprises, which I hate. So it's hard to be a really functioning board when you don't have trust, and you can't trust what's going to happen, and have surprises. Those are
Okay.
things that I really hate.
Okay.
So the storming part, that can, some boards can just stay in that phase. They're never going to get around the corner.
It
So-
could be, yeah.
But yeah, so I just wonder, is that kind of I mean, I guess every board's different, but is there usually a time frame kind of in most boards, or that you've worked with, or, I mean, just curious how that works?
It depends. It
Okay.
truly does, because
Okay.
every board makeup is so different. Sometimes it depends upon the topic that's being discussed.
Right.
Sometimes there are things that just float right on through, and then other times there's certain things where there's differing opinions. So, thank you for that perspective.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was actually what
Chair
I was
Ripple.
going to get to, is
Yes.
that as we worked through this list, and I reflect back, especially in the last 2 years, I see this board pivoting between these 5 quite often. Different topics, we slide into that performing, then we have a board member leave, and now we're in a deforming position where we're trying to figure out how we're going to move into forming. And then we decide to exit that process, and now we're back into the forming process. But some topics go really smooth, and we fall into that performing. And I don't know that I would say performing is necessarily, it looks like a rubber stamp, but it's efficient. You know what you're going to do. You're
Yep.
following a plan. There doesn't need to be unanimous consent at the table. You can have some discussion, but you're making decisions and you're moving forward. And I feel like storming is when you're not moving forward, when you're indecisive, you're not getting typical business done, and there's conflicts at the table that result in not a yes vote, not a no vote, but a failed passage because it falls 3-3. And we've seen a lot of that. And that's one of the reasons I've been so passionate about, we need to get a 7th member. And the voters will give us that in January, but until then, I think we got to find ways to be much more productive with our time. So this is a timely discussion.
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right. I think a lot of boards do move between the stages. And some boards move through them more often than others. So it again, it's an it depends type of response. Other perspectives from anyone else? Thoughts?
Well, I'd like to add that, I think the forming part happened early on, and I know, like the member chair and I would go for coffee. I found out what kind of pie he likes, and my husband.
Yep.
So I enjoy that, the one-on-one when I'd ask people for coffee, or breakfast or whatever. Member Castle and I had a connection with our elementary schools where our kids went, but I think our board needed more of that, and I wasn't sure how to get it, or what else I could do, and then it kind of went into the storming, and needing to go back to that was maybe something that
Yeah.
I could have worked at.
Okay. Good perspective. Thank you. Anybody else want to comment? You look like you wanted to say something.
I would say, we have 4 fairly new members. It was 5 fairly new members, really, until Member Haglund resigned his seat. But with 2 fairly seasoned members of a board, and having been on a board with other seasoned members. So, when I think it's hard when you have your formed group, then some of your friends leave and they're not in there anymore, and new people come on and have differing opinions and ideas. But that is like the penultimate scenario we want to purport to the community and our schools, that everybody belongs. And I think we could do a better job of that up here.
Okay. Working on that. As you were speaking, it reminded me of, with school starting, with classes aren't always the same, no matter what grade level you're in. And you start out, you're sort of like that, a new class almost, where you're just kind of working your way through. And
Yes.
sometimes you make connections with some and not with others. And at the same time, you're modeling also for your school communities. So finding ways to make those connections, I think, is good and important. Thank you for that. Anybody else want to weigh in? Do you have any?
Yeah, there's, with newer members, there's probably going to be, in any situation, there's going to be some new, different thoughts than may have been prevailing prior to that point.
Yep.
But, and I'm sure that as people go, like when I was campaigning and asking the folks about what their concerns are and everything, those are things that I would primarily consider, especially if it was coming from students and what they're looking for. And it seems that all of the coursework we seem to be performing on, because I don't think anyone in this group is negative on any of the offerings that have come up during my time, and I'm sure from previous times, because we've kept things that a lot of boards disposed of accidentally, or I think it was a mistake to do that, and the board that was here at the time didn't. So and those are things that, as a new member, I very much appreciate that those, they stuck to their guns and kept things and, you know, even though we took a hit in the financial area with it, we've been able to bounce back from that. And hopefully with the additional housing coming in and stuff, we can actually start increasing the enrollment. But with what we offer, I think that can happen even without new folks here. Just bring them back from, they're going to other places and stuff.
Okay.
So, but I think it's good. Member Tyson mentioned about, you know, getting together, you know, not necessarily one-on-one, but seems like for the most part, you know, just two people and talking about, you know, their ideas and stuff.
Right.
That's a really good idea. I suppose there's going to be a concern of, okay, does that make a serial board meeting and all these kind of things? But because that's something that I don't think a lot of people consider when they're considering running for any position in government, but that is something that is going to be the case that you have to do. So it's quite a learning experience. I've had experience in other business. The school's a little bit different, but you still have what you do. How do you track that that's going well, and everything behind the scenes that most people a lot of people in a company just don't see all the pieces.
Right.
But I've been in positions in companies where I've seen almost every piece. So I think it's good for people to bounce ideas off each other, and especially their experience and what's worked and what hasn't. And maybe things that maybe they didn't work before, maybe we could work them now. As we talk, the seasoned members and the green members.
The newer, yes.
To,
yes.
To,
Okay.
you know, brainstorm some of the things that, you know, we can do.
Great, thank you.
So Gail?
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify one thing that Member Castle did talk about getting together. And I guess my intent was kind of to get to know someone
one another.
as a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and get to know what they're all about and a little bit more about their families. So that's where I was going about, you know, not sitting down and talking so much
Right.
about what was at the board table, but getting to know the other person. And one thing I forgot to mention in the forming stage that didn't feel particularly good to me was that, you know, I didn't get a chance to be an officer. They took all the officer positions, and it kind of felt like my experience was discounted, my knowledge, you know, and then I was sitting on the end. So those things in the forming stage didn't feel very good, and I didn't know how to express that or who could do anything about it. So it just kind of simmered there. And so that was one other thing I wanted to add.
Okay.
It's
Thank you.
actually a really good point, Member Tyson. I had a very similar experience after I was first elected as well, and I do agree with Member Tyson's comments about going out and meeting with individuals. I've made it a practice to do it every December, and to Member Tyson's point, it's probably something that I should invite members to do more frequently. I think when Member Anderson and Member Castle were first elected, Member Haglund and myself took it upon ourselves to be kind of their mentor when they got started on the board and to help them along, and to avoid a serial meeting or avoid a violation of open meeting law. Member Haglund worked with Member Castle, and I worked one-on-one with Member Tyson, and I've really gotten to know her extremely well. Or Antonsen, sorry, Hanson, Antonsen. And I've gotten to know her really well over the last, gosh, only a year and a half here. But to Member Tyson's point about it, take a more active approach with some of the other board members, I think that would have helped the collaboration at the table quite a bit. So I think that's an excellent idea, and it's probably something we should write down and come back to later.
Very good. Would you like to add anything? I think we've heard from the other. You don't have to, I
Yeah.
just didn't want you to, yeah.
No,
Okay.
I'm just gonna be completely honest. I'm just struggling a little bit with the timing of this, and I think this is really great, but, in the past, especially, since our meeting in early December that went until 2:00 in the morning, there's been a really big lack of trust. There's been really hurtful things that have been said, hurtful things that have been done. Never, no apologies, and we don't have to revisit all of that. But I'm just struggling a little bit with all of a
Right.
sudden kind of, kumbaya and let's really work together. There's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that has happened that I think probably a lot of people aren't aware of, and I'm open to this and I'm listening. I'm just to be, just wanting to be completely honest. This topic is a little bit of a struggle for me because I would like to think that it's genuine. I would hope that it is genuine. To me, actions speak louder than words. So I'd like to see some action to follow up on this, and hopefully that that may be coming, but it remains to be seen. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And maybe this is that new beginning. You're going to welcome another new board member to fill your seventh position, and maybe a takeaway from this evening, because that's one of the last things that we'll do is talk about, are there things that you'd like to work on or try moving forward? And that might be one of those things that you think about being a little bit more intentional. I just wanted to comment again on the one-on-one interactions. When those happen and it's more talking about our kids, I mean, it'd be no different than if your daughters are playing hockey like mine did, and so you're sitting next to a fellow board member and, you're talking about that. I mean, when it moves to a point where you're thinking about, well, how do you think we should vote, or that kind of discussion is not appropriate, obviously, but that getting to know each other and maybe being intentional, especially when folks are new on the board as well. The comment about being an officer, and I hear what you're saying. There's another thought to that too. Sometimes there's more, I don't want to say power, but there's more opportunity when you're not chairing the meeting or clerk or whatever. Sometimes you're able to say things and kind of use some of that wisdom in different ways. So just food for thought on that as well. So I think unless there's other comments, I think we'll maybe move on from those stages right now. And I think that the takeaway of this is to recognize that there are different stages. You might be moving very quickly through some, depending upon the topic, and other times maybe things will move a little bit more slowly. And just acknowledging that that's part of what's happening. The next document that I'd like to take a look at is the board governance model, and it is up on the screen for everyone to see as well. And this you get to see, of course, at phase one. I, as a new board member, did not know there was such a thing as a board governance model, so that was part of my learning curve, and maybe it was for those of you that are new as well. And I won't spend as much time on this other than just that quick review is to say that the board's work is at the top half of the circle, starting at the 12 o'clock top of the circle under the word establish. Your key responsibility is to set the expectations and parameters, have a strategic plan that's up to date, and then based on your strategic plan, you'll be adopting policies that tie to the strategic plan, a budget that relates to the decisions of your strategic plan, and contracts. Basically, the contracts are going to be with staff and with services. So that's your key role. And then moving to the bottom part of the circle, that is Superintendent Jacobson's responsibility. So once you've got those expectations and parameters, you're turning it over to your superintendent, who then is going to be responsible for the leadership and the supervision. And he will I'm sure, be sharing a lot of different things, providing you with updates. There's always that give and take. That's what the dotted line is, the friendly fence, because it's an indicator that you're not working in silos. It's not board here and superintendent here. And you truly are a team. And you'll probably hear me say that while we're here this evening, board superintendent team. You as a board cannot function unless you have a superintendent, and the superintendent cannot function unless there's a board to help give that direction. And then just moving back to the board's responsibility, the area that says evaluate. So as board members, and I think you're fully aware of this, is you have one person that you hire and evaluate, and that's your superintendent. And then you delegate that responsibility to your superintendent for all other staff in your system, in your school system. And it's probably not going to be the superintendent who does all those evaluations because your school district is too large, but I'm sure there is a plan in place where that work is delegated to principals and other administrators. The big piece is in the center, student achievement or student success. That's what you're all about. And as board members, it's always good to remind ourselves of that as well. That's something that sometimes at our board table we would lose sight of. And another mentor, a seasoned board member, very quiet, didn't say a lot, but sometimes, when we were really challenged with a decision, we kind of look over, his name is Gene, we look over at Gene and he'd just say, well, we got to remember what's best for the kids, is how he would put it. And I always hear that too, what's best for the kids, and that's what I hope rings true for you too. And actually, based on your self-evaluation results, I'm really feeling like that is the case with this group. Any comments or questions about the board governance model? Comments? Then there's another document. I don't know that we have that to project. It's the strategic governance framework goal alignment. And really, and I know as board members, I think you've got it in front of you. And so really that is just sharing the importance of having a strategic plan that's up to date. Once you've got that strategic plan in place, the goals for the strategic plan then will become the board's goals, the superintendent goals, the staff goals, and the student goals. And I really think that's how you've been operating over the past years. And again, at the very top in the green box, student achievement or student success is what it's all about. So that's really your aim on that. Any comments or questions? Okay. Then, as we start transitioning to talk a little bit more closely here to the board self-evaluation, I want to talk a little bit about the standards for board leadership. And this is something that you see at Phase 1 and Phase 3 for sure. I think we've included it in our Phase 4 as well. And with the standards, there are 5 of them on the front page. Standard 1 is conduct and ethics. And conduct and ethics is how you as a board superintendent team interact with one another, make decisions together, communicate with one another, respect one another, and move forward in governing based off of your strategic plan. So it's really about you and your interactions. Standard 2 is vision. Vision is just as it says, and it's really what you have in your strategic plan. And as a matter of fact, you'll see in just a little bit that that's really your strongest area. It was a few years ago when the board took the board self-evaluation, and it continues to be here as well. And so again, it's having that vision for student success and meeting the needs of all students, giving them a sense of belonging. On the second page, standard 3 is structure. Structure is organizational and physical. Organizational structure are the staff that you have, and you have a lot of them, but it takes a lot of people to educate all the students that you have. So the organizational structure, and then the physical structure is just as it sounds. It's your building and grounds. And with that, making sure that those learning essentials, those resources, those services are in place for your students. accountability for monitoring all the conditions within your school. That accountability is the fourth standard. And tied into that is the student achievement data, which should really be your primary focus. And then just that accountability for having the right people in the right positions as well. Standard 5 is advocacy and communication, and that's how you tell your story. And the challenge that you have sometimes for telling your story, because all of us learn differently. I mean, at one point in time, we all read the newspaper and we listened to the radio and we watched TV, and that's not the world today. And we still have some people who do that, but there's a lot of other factors and a lot of other ways that we communicate. So that's what advocacy and communication is. And then tied into that is how you as board members respond to requests and that you might receive from stakeholders within your school district, and how you communicate the things that you're working on and celebrating the successes. Each of those standards has benchmarks, A through E, A through D, A through F, A through E, A through H. And the reason I mention that is because the benchmarks were the questions on the board self-evaluation. So I want you to see how this all flows together. And as a matter of fact, our staff are just going through a process of revising some of the statements on the board self-evaluation. So it's been fun. It's kind of been swimming in my head a lot lately. It's not going to be real different, but it was a little bit of an improvement. And then as we start to take a look at your board self-evaluation, I just want to remind you that there is no grading in this, so sometimes board members are apprehensive when they hear we're going to take an evaluation or do an assessment, because it's like, I don't want to be graded on this. So there's no grading, there's no pass or fail, and there was no right or wrong answer. So as you had a chance to respond, it was really your perception of this team based on that particular benchmark. And you'll see varying responses, which I think is pretty similar to most of the schools that I work with as well. This is longitudinal, so every year that you take it, you'll see the results from the previous year. So you've got your 2021 results and now your 2026 results. And this is, I think, more about congratulating yourselves for the things that are going well and celebrating those. And you have a lot of things in here that are going well, so we'll talk about those. We won't have to talk about them as much. And then there's always opportunities for change or improvement, and those are some of the things that, you know, we'll be visiting about. So with that, I'm going to have you take a look at the fourth page in. The first 4 pages are not numbered, but the fourth page in is your overview report, the aggregate data. And so what you see here is each of the standards listed down the left-hand side with a little descriptor of each. At the top, you've got the options for how you responded to each benchmark, always, most of the time, some of the time, never, or don't know. And then the horizontal bar graph is a summary of your responses. These are listed in percentages because there are varying numbers of benchmarks. Remember I said the A through E, A through D. And so in order to give you an apples-to-apples picture, we calculate this in percentages. When we move into the other questions, you'll get to see the number of responses for each. And so you can see where this board landed on your responses. What I found interesting is that your highest area, both in 21 and this time, is really vision. Actually for you, number 1 was structure this year, and number 2 is vision, your highest responses. And I think that speaks very well. You want all of them to be high, but I think having that vision and having the structure in place is very, very important. One of the takeaways of this is, you know, certainly you're looking for responses that are always or most of the time, and what I might say is always, the next board member might say, oh no, that's a some of the time, but you really want to be moving to the most of the time or the always, and that's part of what this discussion's all about. Where there's some of the time, we'll have some discussion about how you might move the dial on that and move that to an always or most of the time. Where it's never, those can be kind of interesting. Never might mean that you truly never do it or talk about it or have discussions. It could be that if, for our newer board members, you might not have been on the board long enough to see that activity or that discussion actually happen. And within the next year, you'll see it. And a year from now, if you took this, you'd be responding very differently. And then the don't knows are not surprising either. Sometimes you just don't know, and not to point fingers at new board members, but sometimes it is more new board members that are just not sure because you, again, you've got that learning curve ahead of you. So we'll kind of talk about those, and we'll talk a little bit more, I think, about the nevers and the don't knows. For superintendents, a lot of times, and I'm guessing your superintendent might be similar in this, they will be taking notes of the nevers and don't know, because those might be opportunities to inform down the road, might be good topics for a study session, being more intentional to describe or explain something, background information as you get to those particular items. So if you're taking notes, I won't be surprised on that. Okay, thoughts, comments about what you see on this overview report? Anyone?
I'm surprised at how similar it is when you start to kind of aggregate the aggregates. That really not a whole lot has changed since 2021 and 2026, and like you said, our highest being vision and structure. It makes sense if you do look at the 2021. There was a little bit less disparity, but I think that I'd have to go back and look at that board dynamic specifically. Member Tyson, Member Corcoran might know, but I think that board had been together more. So there was certainly a little bit more groupthink in that environment. They were on the same page. There wasn't a lot of discussion about specific implementation guidelines. They all kind of thought on that same level. So I think the breakdown makes sense, being that the six of us tend to approach things from a different angle. And I think that's going to be good because it's going to give us things to discuss and really work through where I wasn't here in 2021 to watch this part play through, but I can't imagine the discussion was too in-depth.
And Member Corcoran and Thiessen, you can remind us too, I believe that at that time, the board and the superintendent had been here for a while. You had, I believe, one new board member. I don't remember who it was. She sat over here.
We had two.
Two new board members? Okay.
I think we had two.
Okay. So, right. And so sometimes, to your point, I think when a group has been together for a while, you're going to see that reflected, and I think that's maybe what's reflected, unless you have.
Might have been Luke, that's what I'm thinking. Luke was on there then.
It was Kate who
Kate?
initiated it, and then we had,
21.
Alex Kedda.
Oh, Alex.
Yep.
Oh, Alex
Okay.
and Kate, okay. Yeah, this is, it's interesting, Gail, like, especially the standard 5, seeing such a high number for never. That, and accountability, there's a lot more red than there was in the past. So definitely areas that have been a concern or a problem. So try to get those closer to at least yellow would be good.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, and I was noticing, as Member Corcoran, Standard 1, that has quite a broad spread compared to 2021. Conduct and ethics. So it'd be nice to get that closer and move the dial.
Other comments? Okay. All right. Well, that gives you that big picture overview. One of the things that I have observed, and this is not research-based, this is just Gail's observation of having done, I bet you I've done hundreds of these now over the past years. what I tend to see is that when responses of always and most of the time are in that 50% range, usually the boards are at a higher performing level. And so for this group, I mean, you're not that far off, maybe in a couple areas. Again, you've got new members with your team. So we'll just see and kind of look at each of the questions at this point, but something to work towards. Okay.
I was gonna,
Yeah.
I was just gonna say with the areas in red, I think there's probably likely different ideas within the board members up here as to what that means.
Could be.
And, you know, obvious,
Mhm.
so I'm looking forward to
Yep.
continuing here to see how we work through that.
Yep. You're good. Appreciate the comments.
Mhm.
Okay. Let's take a look then at the individual questions, the individual statements, if you will. And as you take a look at page 5, what you'll see on every page now moving forward, and I know you had a chance to take a look at this even before this evening, but you'll see the standard number and the name, standard 1, conduct and ethics. You'll see the benchmark that the question's related to, so that'll give you a good clue of where things are at, and then you'll see the statements. And so for this particular benchmark, there were a couple, basing decisions on what's best for students and committing to a clear and shared purpose. Some of the upcoming pages, you'll see there were more statements that tied to the benchmark. Really with these two statements, they tie to your strategic plan, the direction of your strategic plan. That's your, you know, what's best for students and that clear and shared purpose.
So I think one thing I should probably add a little context here, at least to the way that I address these questions, is I was probably in a blue or yellow on almost everything, because I look at always as quite literally 100% of the time. There is never an exception to that.
Right.
And I look at never to be the exact same type of thing, and it absolutely never happens. So if I reflect back on it and see that it happened once, I kind of fell into that some of the time. So
Yep.
I don't know how other board members felt when they approached this, but when I look at that very first question just stands out to me, because when I look at this, I feel like this could, our 2026 result and our 2021 result could very well be the exact same, just based on that interpretation
Yep.
of what always and never is. And I don't know how other board members felt about that, but
Yep.
that's what jumped out at me on it's labeled question 3.
I think that's a good point. Any comments about that or any?
Could you clarify that again? I might not be.
Yeah, so if,
And I could just barely hear you,
Oh,
Member
I-
Chair, and having a little bit of
Oh,
ear
I'll-
reaching with
Okay.
you if you want
Yes.
to pull your mic.
I'll
can
pull the
do
mic a
this.
little bit closer here.
Thank you
But
so-
Because it's.
Maybe you can.
yeah, she might be out of
I'll
wire.
try. How about if I slide
If
up a
you
little bit
shift
too?
Maybe
to the
that won't-
side there, you could get maybe a little bit more.
I can easily do that.
Thank you, Gail.
Yeah.
But-
No, so remember, Tyson, what I was saying is, my interpretation of always is.
Of never?
or Always is, it
Okay.
happens without exception.
Okay.
Absolutely always, 100% of the time. So like if I'm asked, are you on time for doctor appointments? I would say most of the time, because there's that one time where I get caught up in weather. I can't say always, I can say
Okay.
most of the time. And the same for never. My interpretation of never is it absolutely never happens. It hasn't occurred once, ever. That's how I just
Okay.
define never in my mind. And don't know is obvious. Sometimes you're ignorant or you haven't come across that experience or that process. But in my case, when I went through this, I know I fell into most of the time and some of the time
Okay.
for the vast majority of these questions. And I kind of base that on has it happened more than 50% of the time or less than 50% of the time? So I just wanted to get out my interpretation
Gotcha.
of
Okay, thank
the
you.
5 categories, just because I think it will help us dig into it and evaluate it and see, especially when I look at question 3 here, it just jumps out at me as that we may have very well said the same thing that we said in 2021 if there was a different interpretation of always and never. And that's why I throw it out on the table.
So what you're saying is that that's your interpretation of every question, or just of this one?
No, that was how I approached
Q3.
this entire thing, and
Okay.
I just, I noticed that it seemed like the perfect time to disclose how my thought process worked when I
Okay.
addressed these questions, in case other board members felt differently when they addressed the questions.
Okay. I
I'm
wasn't
I'm
sure
not
if
going to
you meant
compel anybody
based
to
on- oh,
to disclose what they were thinking, of course, but I wanted to share that with the rest of the board, at least what my thought process was.
Thank you for that.
And you're not the first, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
did you?
Go ahead. So I was just clarifying, you don't mean that for just this question bases a decision on what's best for student, but for the whole?
For the
whole
entire thing,
Gotcha.
yeah. If I was going to say always, it means it's happened every
Okay.
single time,
On every
Yeah.
question. Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
I appreciate that you brought that up, because you're not the first person that has mentioned that as we've had these discussions, and especially the always is one that people are like, it's got to be always, or I'm not going to go with that as an answer. So, okay.
Yeah, but it's hard for that first question, because that is
Yes.
our role as a school board.
It absolutely
Yeah.
is.
Yep.
To say that, so sometimes we are looking what's best for students, not always, it should be an always. I
Yeah.
mean, in the reality of a high-functioning board that is doing our jobs, right? So that's, but, you know, I mean, most of the time and some of the time, it's really not a good indicator to me. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not a positive indicator to me, right? It should be much better at always, like it was in 21. You know, so, interesting.
I don't want to steal Gail's thunder, but
Yeah.
do we want to dig into that, to your point, Member
Well,
Corcoran?
it's-
That is
it's-
certainly valid.
It's very upsetting to me that that is the way that we're functioning.
None of us
And-
said always.
No, none of us, and that is really disappointing. So
And
there's, we gotta.
That's kind of why I wanted to clarify
Yeah,
that, because
yeah.
to me, question 3, base its decisions on what is best for students, that's easy. That's our job. That's our role. It should be always.
Should be always, yeah.
I mean, maybe not for every question, but I think with that one, it's very appropriate answer, always.
Right. So, we have to find ways that that should be always. That's what we're working toward.
To be, yes, to be
our
committed to that,
goals.
that shared purpose. Absolutely. Okay. Should we move on to the next set of questions? You okay with that?
I do notice that questions 1 and 2 are not present.
Oh, thank you for that. Question 1 was, in the survey, was name of your school that you selected, and
Your code
Your
word.
code.
what was,
The code word, which I didn't remember.
what was the other?
The code word.
Or the code word, your
Oh, the code word,
self-identifier,
okay.
yes.
Self-identifier.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Your code, your secret password code, yes, exactly. So thank you for asking that question. On the next page, there are 4
Member
statements.
Christensen,
Oh,
you do have a
I'm sorry,
question?
I have
I'm
a
sorry.
question.
Yes.
I'm looking on the answers here, and in 2021, it adds up to 8, so I'm assuming the superintendent took it there or something, but then for us, it only adds up to 6, right? So did someone not take it? Or-
Evidently, somebody did not take it.
Yes.
And you're correct. In 2021, 7-member board plus the superintendent. So in this case, right now, you're a 6-member board, and superintendent had the opportunity to take it as well. So someone didn't take it for some reason. I know that there were a number of reminders that went out, and then we just got to the point where I needed to pull the report for you, and that's not unusual either. I mean, it's,
So we're taking time this evening, talking about how we should come together and all these really great things, and someone sitting here didn't take the time to fill out the survey?
So that,
Well, if it went to the superintendent as well, perhaps he didn't fill it out.
No, he did.
He did. Oh, I thought maybe we were talking about the prior superintendent.
So
No,
I'm
yes,
just,
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I think.
again,
we-
sort of actions speak louder than words. If you can't even take, take the time
Yeah.
to fill out a survey for whatever reason, or, you know, got sent to your spam. I mean, there were several reminders. We were talking about it. So I mean, again, I just, that's,
yeah.
so
And-
that's a
and-
good clarification. I wasn't even aware of that. I mean,
Yeah.
I was aware that somebody was out and we had reminders at meetings, but here tonight, when I received this, I was just assuming that our
Yeah.
new superintendent hadn't gotten time or, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
And again, it happens. People have busy lives. There's, could be a lot of reasons, and I usually try not to dwell on it. I mean, we've got the 6 responses, and you're all here this evening for the discussion, so you're all hearing the comments, and so far, everybody's been willing to speak and add comments. But yeah, and I usually just get to, it is what it is. We do the reminders and just go on. I did have our database person take a look to see if it was maybe stuck somewhere or not fully completed, and that wasn't the case. But,
Okay.
so, yeah, I would let it go.
And to that
Yeah.
point, I'd like to add, because Member Corcoran coordinated this, she did a lot of work behind the scenes here.
Mhm.
And
Talked to Gail a few
Yeah.
times.
I believe she did reach out to
The
the
Yeomans.
full board a
Yep.
number of
Mhm.
times.
Yeah.
And then all of us were very certain that we did take it.
Mhm.
So it's very possible there was some sort of a technical glitch. I don't think anybody was
It could have, yeah.
complacent in
Right.
not filling it out, and not
Mhm.
providing the data.
Oh.
Mhm.
I don't think there was any ill intent by any
Mm-mm.
board member here
No.
at all.
I didn't pick up on that either. There are occasions where, with some boards that I work with, where someone has said, I'm not doing it, and they don't. And that's, we just have to go with that, and,
Well, it would be nice to know
Mhm.
that ahead of time, for
Mhm.
me anyway.
Mhm.
Because I wasn't aware of that,
Mhm.
that there's a whole board member's information that's not in
Mhm.
here, correct?
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for us, it's just looking at those responses that are there, and again, you're all here for the discussion and the takeaway, and I would just leave it at that, and, yeah, so. Okay. So with this set of questions, talking about being open to the public, the divergent perspectives, and the decision-making process, this is one that is a little more colorful with the red, more than maybe some of the other questions that you'll see along the way. The two that maybe stand out the most, but I'm going to let you comment as well, 7 and 8, carrying out an annual assessment, which I'm not surprised by the results, because you may not have done that on a formal basis in the past, I'm not sure. And setting goals for improvement, and that's actually something we'll talk about. I'm taking some notes, and then before we wrap up, you'll have a chance to share some ideas too of things that you'd like to work on. And so those can be things that you can bring back to the table at maybe a study session and have a conversation about what you'd like to work on. Questions,
On
comments from the group?
Questions 7 and 8 there, I'd like to kind of unpack
Mhm.
what MSBA's recommendations are and
Mhm.
get Superintendent Jacobson involved in that. As you can see from the red is carried forward essentially here.
Mhm.
In my time on the board, this has never been done. It's
Mhm.
not something that the
Mhm.
previous board chairs did.
Mhm.
When I moved into the role of board chair, I didn't implement anything along those lines either. I
Mhm.
didn't have a precedence to work off of.
Right.
Not that that's an excuse for not doing it,
Mhm.
but it did not hit my radar.
Mhm.
Perhaps because it wasn't something that was a standard practice here in
Mhm.
the community. I would love to understand more about it,
Mhm.
and maybe this can be the first step in implementing something along these lines.
Absolutely. So the message from MSBA is that we would encourage you to do some type of an evaluation on an annual basis. You've got this tool that you could use as one option. Actually, there are 2 options. You can take this and just receive the one-page overview report that you take a look at, and that's something that we offer to all of our school districts at no charge. There's no facilitated discussion. You can do what you've done, take it, get the overview and the full report, have a facilitated discussion. Then other schools will just be intentional once a year. A lot of times, like with our board, we did it in the summer months because things were a little bit slower. I don't know if you can say that anymore nowadays, but being intentional about just talking, how are things going with the board? Are there things that we need to take a look at, things we'd like to address? Some boards will take a look at their board interactions at the end of a board meeting randomly, where, how did everybody feel about the board meeting this evening? Is there things that, as us interacting,
those kinds of conversations. So I think the takeaway is doing something at least on an annual basis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Member Cass?
Are you saying that after the board meeting is done or at the end?
At the end of the board meeting, yes, thanks for clarifying that,
Yeah.
yeah, before you adjourn, yes,
Yes.
absolutely. Mhm. Okay, hopefully that was helpful for you. If there are no comments, other comments, we'll just move on to the next page, page 7.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
So, to question number 8, set goals for its improvement.
Yes.
Are we getting to that discussion further on here in this
So-
packet, or?
So, yeah, I'm gonna kind of informally
Okay.
take some notes on
Yeah.
things that I've heard you discuss, and then before we wrap up, I'll ask each of you if you could pick one thing that you'd like to address as a takeaway from this.
Okay.
And then I'll pull those together in a
Okay.
summary for you.
So, Thank
Mhm.
you.
And then
Right.
you will be able to talk about those at maybe an upcoming, if you have a study session, maybe have a conversation there, and maybe pick 1 or 2 things. And your one thing might be to do an annual assessment.
Right.
You know, it's
Well,
not,
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's not that you would have 10 different things that you would work on. You might decide to do that. My recommendation, we pick 1 or 2 that you'd like to work on because you've already got a lot of stuff on your plate as it is. So, okay.
Yeah,
So-
I've heard other board, not at this table, board
Mhm.
members, but other board members, you know, MSBA conference or something,
Mhm.
and they seem to, some of them were, because this kind of thing came up, well, how often does your board do a
Mhm.
workshop? And I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't think we've done that. I
Mhm.
mean, I've only been here for a year and a half too, so I'm
Mhm.
not faulting anything. I'm
Right.
just saying, I don't know,
Mhm.
do we do that?
Mhm.
So I'm glad we're doing this
Mhm.
right now with you, and I look forward to talking to number 8 later.
Okay, yes.
I think that most of our workshops have been on the moving pieces of the district, you know, with the redistricting and
Mm-hmm.
school changes and everything.
Mhm.
And so, along with the comments that Chair Rebelline mentioned about the always, okay, so
Mhm.
if at every board meeting,
Mm-hmm.
you set goals for improvement,
Mhm.
that would be an always.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But if it hasn't come up in a
Mhm.
board meeting ever, then that would be a never.
Mhm.
So that would, you know, and there's not, before I put my hat in
Mhm.
for running for the position, I went through I read every policy.
Wow.
And I didn't see anything in policy that said anything about that.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps these are some things that we might want to bring up in policy committee, where we make it a policy that the board addresses these things. And I don't believe that it has to be an always, but it should
Mhm.
be a frequent enough
Mhm.
where it at least goes into the blue.
Yep,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Good point. And there's a couple things coming up where we can segue back to that too, so I'm glad you mentioned that. Okay. Ready to move on to page 7? So with this one, I put a note with 9 and 10 to really congratulate you on delegating authority to your superintendent, honoring the roles and responsibilities. With statement 11, written protocols, does this board have a board handbook? Have you created one over the years?
I think we have.
Okay.
I think admin assistant Joy, prior to Becky, started that.
Okay. A couple years ago, actually, it's probably been 3 years ago now, we created a template for a board handbook.
Yeah.
So if you, I don't know if any of you do, Superintendent
never
Jacobson?
seen
I
one.
think she
Yeah.
followed that and had that as
Okay.
a guide.
Okay.
I would say, I'm not aware of a board handbook myself. One
Okay.
thing that we did do over the last year and a half,
Mhm.
though, is we completely revamped all of our board policies.
Okay.
Our previous board policies, some of them were dated
Mm-hmm.
1990 or earlier. We adopted the 200 series from MSBA almost fully. There's some that Terry Morrow and I might have a discussion on where I think they're kind of repetitive. So I would condense them into a single one, and then I would, the proposed policies that I brought forward, we would pull in practice or precedent. So I would say for the first time, at least in a long time, we readdressed a lot of the written protocols for the board. I think we adopted them last May or June.
Okay.
So we're probably in a pretty good position to build a handbook off of those policies now, especially since we meet that MSBA standard on written protocol now.
You absolutely could do that. The template for the board handbook is on our website, so you'll find it there. And the board handbook really is something that complements your code of ethics policy. And it's some of those, I call it the unwritten things that we've just always done it that way. We've just always set up committees this way. And we always just have people sit in these spots at the board table. Or we've got a protocol or a practice for who on the board can speak with legal counsel or to represent the board with media, comments to media. How do you get an agenda on the board? Or how do you get an item on the board agenda? Those kinds of things are those kind of unwritten rules that are usually there. So if you want to take a look at that handbook, I am very impressed with it. I'm very proud of it. It's something that we really needed for a long time. And it's not something that you're going to create overnight. It might be a process that you engage in. It can be used for orientating new board members, certainly, new staff as well. And the other thing that we usually recommend is that at your organizational meeting in January, besides the things that are required under statute, that's a good time also to take a look at your code of ethics policy and then also take a look at your handbook and make sure that there's agreement from all 7 board members on both the code of ethics and also the handbook.
And so, given that and what Member Chair said, some of the policies that we redid in the 100s that turned over to the 200s, around board governance and the role that we do, we weren't all in agreement with those. So we'd have to look at that as well before we incorporate it into the handbook.
Perhaps, and that would be something that you'd want to have a discussion about, I would guess, with the policies, so. Okay. Here we go.
So being in manufacturing, one of the things that's always brought up is that just because you've been doing it forever the same way doesn't mean that it couldn't be improved, which would come up in the
Tweaked.
improvement part.
Yep.
Although certain things, it's like, yes, there's a standard,
Right.
and you stick to the standard, but you can maybe tweak it here and there.
Absolutely. Okay. Any other questions or comments about those statements? And if not,
I have a question,
Oh.
real quick. Maybe you know
Yes.
off the top of your head, and if you don't, it's
Okay.
certainly not a big deal. Do you know how many pages long the template for this handbook is?
it might be 20.
Okay.
That's my best guess. There's
Okay.
a number of things. And some of the statutes are in there, some of those things that you like to have just really at your fingertips
Yes.
as a board member.
Well, yeah, and I only brought it up too because I have heard other, again, board members from the conferences talking about their board handbook. And it's like, oh, I think it would be really good to have, I mean, because when you're new, there's a lot of things you don't realize, like statutes that you need to understand, or where do you, if I haven't been doing this for a long time, how do you find them? What are the websites you need to become familiar
Yep.
with? And, in addition to the organization you just became a board member for, like who are all the directors and, anyway, I just think it's probably a really good idea.
Yep.
And I
Good.
think we already have one. Mine would be at home, so if I find it, I'll bring it in for Becky
Okay.
to look over and see if she can talk to Joy maybe and find out where that original one was or where it lives. But it is a great tool to have, and districts that I know that have it have kind of tweaked it to be their own, make it their own. So it is, you're right, it's very helpful.
Chrissy, remember Corcoran, you're nodding. Remember
No,
Christensen, did you get one?
Trying to
I-
remember.
I don't believe, I don't believe I did.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with it. And I'm looking online, and it's 29 pages, the template is 29.
Okay.
It's a good guess.
And it should be part of the, when you first
Should be
become a board
orientation,
member, it should be
yeah.
part of the, when you first come in and learn all the facets of being a board member, it should be part of that package.
Really helpful. Yep.
So I'm sure, I believe we had, I remember it
Yeah,
being
we'll have to
small, but
look.
it's been a long time.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It
something
should be
we
on the
should be
server
looking-
somewhere or on a backup tape.
Yeah,
I have to look for that.
we will certainly look. Yep,
Yeah.
sure. Be a good place to start.
Well, we start with the template and
Yeah.
we develop something. 29 pages isn't that long.
Very good. Moving on to page 8. We're still in conduct and ethics, here talking about students can achieve at high levels, support continuous improvement. Policies have been mentioned a number of times, and you're well aware that MSBA provides those model policies, and our staff, and in particular, Dr. Morrow, is always monitoring those, making sure that they're up to date, and you receive them as soon as the legislative session has adjourned and we have time to get those created. And then before you receive the model policies, they're also vetted by our legal counsel as well. So you can be sure that they're, based on this statement, research-based. And then you get to adapt or adopt, as is, depending upon if it's may or must.
I'd actually like to comment on that because I know my questioning, I was on the lower half of this grading scale, and MSBA has a wonderful resource of policies for us. And actually one of my initial goals during my first term was to get through our entire policy stack and adopt the MSBA policy. That work got halted after the, we prefaced it with a 1, so I call it the 1300 series, but it would be the MSBA 300. Because a lot of our policies are maintained internally, and that's not necessarily bad, but many of our policies don't follow even basic federal laws or basic state statutes any longer because there's been gaps in that. And correcting some of those things has been problematic just with public perception. We found one last year that we were in violation of the Equal Access Act, and going through and correcting that caused a rift in the community that they thought we were taking away student groups and all we were doing was putting them under the proper structure. And now we have more student groups today than we did
Before.
prior to the development or the adoption of, I think it's 510 and 801, or it's either 810 and 501, I can't remember specifically. But that's something that I think is a major opportunity for this board, is to be more responsive with legislative changes. And unfortunately, it's going to require a massive uplift because everything between the MSBA 400 and 900 series needs to be
Reviewed or,
rewritten to match the MSBA model, if that's a model we're going to go forward with. And that was my recommendation when I first started that work a little over a year ago.
Yes, excuse me. So a couple things to Chair Rebeline's point. I mean, I feel like we don't have to, again, relitigate everything, but I think that's a bit of a revisionist history on that policy. Perhaps towards the end, maybe that was the reason, or the reason that was found to make a lot of changes, but it was not the reason when that started. And also, were you trying to say that we have policies that are illegal, or what were you saying we're not following?
That don't align with federal statute. Yeah, I've been.
So we have those
I've been
that.
very vocal about that over the last year and a half, yeah.
So our director of HR is not aware of those things, or?
Yeah, I don't,
We've discussed them in this boardroom and we still haven't corrected them.
Well, we have a policy committee, so we have a process.
I was
So
just gonna
this
ask
is kind of going outside that bounds because we have that process in place. And I've been on policy committee many times. There's always that process of consistent review. So
okay.
Well, I just think that's quite an accusation, I feel
feel like that we have multiple policies that are
Yeah, I don't think that's
illegal.
correct.
You know.
Well, you should name the policies you're talking about, maybe.
We've
But anyway,
discussed them all in this room.
So, yeah, I think you answered my question, too. I wondered if you had a policy committee, and it sounds like you've got
We
one.
do.
And then usually, most schools will try to review about 1/3 of their policies on an annual basis. I'm not sure if that's what
correct, I think
has
Our,
been.
roughly what
we
we
actually
do.
define it, you know, when we did the 200 series policies, we put a requirement in there. I can't remember if it's every other year or every 3
Okay.
years. But we did adopt that recommendation from MSBA last year.
Okay.
Prior to that, there was no official cadence. So it just kind of fell on what happened during the legislative session, what is statute required, and where does kind of best effort fit. There had been some policies that hadn't been before the board since 1992.
For a while.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Also on this page, question 14, the collaborating with colleagues across the region. One of the things that I always like to mention with this statement is that MSBA provides you with opportunities to do that through Leadership Conference, and I'm hoping that you've all attended Leadership Conference or will try to. It's really one of the best professional development opportunities ever when you think about all the speakers and the workshops and the exhibitors that are there. So Leadership Conference, we have our phase 1 through 5 that you have opportunities to interact with your colleagues. The coffee and conversations, I know some of you have been a part of that. I think those are pretty interesting, first and third Tuesdays of the month. One's at 8 o'clock, one's at noon. I know it's always sometimes hard for people to participate in those. What's fun about them is they are 1 hour, and it starts off with bring up 3 topics, and you might hear from northern Minnesota and southern Minnesota, and then maybe somebody from the metro. Sometimes the questions are all the same, and it's just a way of helping each other in answering questions. We have our board chair chat, which is on the second Wednesday of the month for board chairs. And again, board chairs kind of drop in, drop out as they're available to participate. And it's the same agenda too, with, you know, what are some things that board chairs are addressing right now, and we do some problem solving with them. And it's not necessarily we as MSBA, we step in if there are some basic questions, but usually it's that sharing from school to school. We have our third Thursday webinars. Many times there's opportunities to share through that. Our negotiation seminar, our officers workshops, you get a lot of opportunities to share, find out what's happening. And then certainly our advocacy team, our government relations team with Platform in Action, with the Delegate Assembly. And then my most favorite is the Friday chats during the legislative session. The best 30 minutes of my week, actually, when you can just get that quick update on what's going on. And then we have a Friday chat plus on the first Friday where there is opportunity to interact and with fellow board members. So we've embedded some of those things, and then you likely have some things that you've created or have available too. Or if not, that might be a topic of discussion that you might want to consider at some point. Yeah.
So I have a question. Yeah, so those are on emails that come out from MSBA.
Yes, yes.
And I know
Right.
Gail's really good at being the district director to kind of keep us advised of what's going on with the MSBA. But I guess the saddest part is when we broke away from NSBA. And I believe that was, we had amazing interaction with people from out of state. And I think it was just great collaboration and getting to know the way people do things differently across different states. I really truly miss that.
Okay.
That was probably one of the best things that when I was a new board member, to talk to people from other states.
Okay.
And then when we broke away, and I know we're, is it CASPA? How do I say it?
CASPA,
Yeah. I have not gone to any of those, and I don't really know the correlation between the two. I don't know, you know, if it's as good or is not as big or whatever, but I think when that happened, that was disappointing to me, and I think that is where I probably felt like I didn't have that broader knowledge.
Missed that, yeah.
Because you only get out what you get when you go, I mean, at the MSB annual,
Yep.
it's fabulous, but you only, if you go to attend and you interact, and you get a lot of information, but you have to be there and you have to be willing to do those things.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
which
And have
is
the time,
wonderful.
have the time. to
And
do
have
it.
the time,
That's
right,
one of the big,
exactly.
big things. But CASPA does an excellent job. I think I've been to 3 of the national conferences, and they have just a plethora of workshops, some fantastic speakers, and a lot of chance to interact. And, yeah, I think the next one is in Dallas.
Is it
For-
April? Is it usually April?
And March, I think.
I think
March?
this year.
I think it's in March, yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe I
Maybe
should
like
be
March
going to that.
11th through the 13th off the top of my head
Okay,
here.
thank you.
Yes.
So what are typically the timing during the day of when these Tuesdays and Thursdays, these different events that you were talking about?
So with the coffee and conversations, the first Tuesday of the month, it's at 8 o'clock, and the third Tuesday of the month, it's over the noon hour. Board Chair Chat is the second Wednesday of the month, and that's over the noon hour. The third Thursday webinars are always at 1 o'clock, pretty much. And then the other workshops, it just depends. Like, the phase workshops are offered virtually and in person, and usually those, I think we do actually 6 to 9. And then there are some, I think there's one coming up that is going to be like a noon to 4, noon to 3, something like that. So,
Because-
They're always in the director, Kirk Schneiderwin,
Mm-hmm.
the executive director's update that we get.
Mhm.
And they
Mhm.
kind of reformatted it, so it's got just a bright color, blue and green, and his picture, and they've really worked at getting it more, so you like, know what you're gonna read, right? It's not just another email to delete.
yeah.
So,
There's-
because to be participating in some of them, it's like, it can be very problematic.
It's a struggle,
Mhm.
yeah.
And my company has been,
Mhm.
I've worked more overtime this year than I probably have in the last
Mhm.
15 years.
Yeah.
So it's been tough as far as
Mhm.
time-wise,
Mhm.
to be, I mean, you can get the emails and
Mhm.
read what's happening, but you're not able to participate without switching
Right.
things up or,
Mhm.
and like my lunch hour is
Mhm.
11.
Mhm.
So, and in different businesses,
Mhm.
sometimes they're like, get a little bit lax with it.
Mhm.
You can just kind of, all right, well, I'll do it as long as it's the same
Mhm.
half hour, whatever it
Right.
is. But my company has been, okay, here's your thing, and you
Mhm.
got to punch out, and now with whatever they did with the legislation, and now they have to pay you to the minute or something, you can't
Mhm.
punch in early. There's all this hassle that they've
Mhm.
had to deal with, so they've tightened up, and I'm sure most
Mhm.
businesses have been doing those kind of things.
Could be. And I appreciate what you're saying. That is one of the downsides because it's so hard to find a time. We did, a few years ago, try an evening session for the coffee and conversations, and we just didn't draw people, unfortunately. And I understand that too, but anyway. But there's a few things. The third Thursday webinars are also posted on our website afterwards. That doesn't get to the point here of being able to interact, but at least you can still get that information too.
So,
And-
and just to add, so are the legislative
Mhm, yes.
chats. You can always go into the website and just click on them, and sometimes I'm listening to them at like 9:30 at night or in the morning with my coffee. So
Right,
that's
it's just
an
you don't get
option
the
too.
participation
interaction
part. You
piece,
can-
yeah.
Well, that isn't a participation part. That's just them giving an update.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But it really helps you know what's moving through the legislators and what bills are coming up, and so.
And there may be some of these questions that, if you're not on a particular committee that is appointed, or what, I don't know what the correct term is,
Mhm.
that pertains to a question.
Mhm.
Okay, well, so if there were some questions that really have to do with the policy committee, and I haven't
Mhm.
been on the policy committee, okay, well, I've never seen that.
Mhm.
And
Right.
so, just because they may have said, okay, well, can we improve this? It
Mhm.
may not have come to the board saying, well, we're in the policy committee, we're trying to improve on this.
Mhm.
Then, oh, okay, well, then that would be a
Mhm.
score one for that,
Good
for that
point.
topic.
Yeah, good point. Thank you for that. Okay. Should we move on to the next set of questions?
Sure.
Still conduct and ethics, and with this group, we're talking about the healthy relationships. And I think the only one that I made a note on was 17, with treating all individuals, board members, staff, students, community members with respect. And everyone selected some of the time. And I think probably it just goes back, I'm not sure if board members want to comment on this. Maybe some of the conversation that's already happened here reflects that as well. just thinking about what I said at the beginning too, that you're really setting the tone, and is that the tone that you want to set for your school district? And then maybe talking at some point about how you change that tone and what that's going to take. And maybe the new beginning is after the elections. I'm not sure. I mean, you can always start now because the elections aren't until November, but, you know, having some preliminary discussions, some agreements on that, and then for sure be moving to put those in place when you've got your newly elected board members. With your open board position, is that going to be filled immediately with the election?
Yes, yep.
Okay,
That
that's
position
what I was
is-
thinking. So,
That
yep.
position is in the election.
It won't be a
this year.
January.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, there will not be a January
Okay.
vacancy,
Okay, perfect.
which I think will be
Good.
very fortunate for
Yeah.
everybody. But I'd like to make a point on this question number 17 here. And I know I'm going out on a limb here, but I think I can speak for all 7 of us sitting at the table. I think this question would be always, if it read, treat all individuals, including staff, students, and community members with respect. I feel like everybody at this table does that without exception. Every interaction we have with staff members is respectful, and every interaction that we have, especially with our students, our community members, I think all of us at this table do an exceptional job of remaining respectful, even when we're on opposite sides of the issue. I can think of a couple of community members specifically that their feedback is almost relentless abuse, and I feel like we all handle that very well.
Okay.
I think where
Good.
some of the contentions comes in is at the board table. Member Christensen's already mentioned it, and it goes both ways. Like if you felt you've been wronged by me, I probably feel that I've been wronged by you. So there isn't somebody's at fault for any of that. I think it's a two-way street, and I don't think it's unique to any member. Obviously, if we all said
You're all on the
some of
same
the
page.
time.
So, and I think the takeaway is you're going to want to have some kind of a discussion about that, and what the next steps are, how you address it, I think. Good. And I appreciate your comment that you've added to, and maybe the rest of the board members, do you feel the same way, that this is more board focused than staff, students, and community? Is that,
I don't
oh, okay,
completely, no.
okay,
No.
okay.
So I think it goes along with what's worded in the Q17. Staff, students, community members. I mean, it's not just the board, in my eyes.
Okay. Good. Should we move on to the next set of questions? Page 10, conduct and ethics, working as a team. With this one, let's see, the first one talks about the achieving mutual trust and commitment, working with the superintendent. Your second one, the professional development opportunities, there were some various responses here. I think one message that we have at MSBA is to not be afraid of investing in yourselves, in your own professional development as a board member. It's something that you expect of your staff. You expect students to develop, and so it really does set a precedence. I think the caveat is what Member Castle said before, it's finding that time sometimes to be able to get away and do it. It's not that folks don't always not want to do it, but finding that time, but not being afraid of investing in yourselves with professional development. Other comments from the board about any of these statements? Things that come to your mind?
Well, I mean, I guess, sorry, I just started talking
Sure.
without looking up. The holding study sessions, idea here appeared again, so that's not something I'm aware that we do or have done, but I find that concept very interesting, and then it's also saying use collaborative processes that result in well-informed problem-solving and decision-making. Yeah, I mean, if we could develop a collaborative process,
Mhm.
you know, so that, you know, I don't know what that looks like,
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm.
I don't know that I've gotten many phone calls for coffee,
Can
you
Mhm.
know, so I'm not.
can I expand upon that question?
Mhm.
Because I actually
Absolutely.
have a question on number 20 for Gail specifically. As you may know, we have board meetings. We don't, at some board, have work sessions where they
Mhm.
don't necessarily do business, and they sit down and they just kind of discuss items. It's
Mhm.
open, it's kind of free-flowing. To my knowledge, we've never had that as part of our operations here.
Mhm.
We certainly haven't while I've been on the board. So we've had to handle all business either in board meetings
Mhm.
or working in small groups in the superintendent.
Mhm.
And if I look back on like the elementary school rebounding issue that we worked on, that was a major effort. We had a lot of, I had weekly check-ins with Dr.
Mhm.
Massey at that point where we were getting down to looking at specific roads on the map, and I was getting updates on how things were going in the various committees and stuff. And I recognize I was more connected to that being the board chair,
Mhm.
but all board members had the opportunity to have those conversations. But when you get into, I'll call it the lower impact decisions, you know, the things that you're talking about on a
Mhm.
weekly basis or in various meetings, there was a time, it started about a year and a half ago, where we had a number of individuals engage very tightly in accusing certain board members of violating open meeting law.
Mhm.
And any form of collaboration was looked at either as a serial meeting or a violation of open meeting law. We even had board members commenting on it
Mhm.
in the boardroom, saying, well, we suspect you're violating open meeting law because. So I feel like we've gotten a bit gun shy on collaboration outside of the boardroom
Mhm.
because of those accusations.
I have to stop, because I can't quite follow all of that and hear all of it. So,
So, well,
wait, can
my
you go
my
back to
question,
just speaking louder
sure.
a little bit
Well,
for
my
me?
question for you, Gail,
What did you
is
say about open meeting law?
over the last year and a half especially, it's been difficult because there's been a lot of accusations of violations of open meeting law. There's
By-
been-
from who and
There's been
when?
FOIA requests on open meeting law. Member Tyson, you mentioned it in board meetings that you suspect certain members are violating open meeting law. I've stopped that discussion
That's
because
so
it hasn't
different
been
from
true.
collaborating and having coffee together, so I don't know.
But that's my question for Gail here
Mhm.
is, what do you recommend for boards, especially boards where there's tension, on being able to collaborate correctly without having that perception in the community or even amongst the board
Mhm.
that something nefarious is going on?
You certainly need to, the conversation has to be based on open meeting law, so it's not that you can go into a private session. There is one option that you can use, and it's an advisory opinion. We can talk about that a little bit more when it is the interaction with the board, where you can do that in a closed session. No board business can be discussed. That would be an option for you and have a facilitated discussion. You could do it on your own. You could have an MSBA staff person assist with that. There might be someone from the outside that you would choose to have help talk through that. So that would be an option to consider. If you're comfortable at the board table, just speaking, speaking your thoughts. Everybody seemed to be pretty candid tonight, so I don't think that's an issue. But I can also understand what you're saying when you're wanting to be, it's kind of like airing the dirty laundry, maybe. I don't know. That's maybe not the best way of putting it, but the things that you're really struggling with, it can be hard. So just having the candid conversations in a board setting. I've worked with several boards where, they just sat down and started sharing the things that concerned them, not a pointing fingers, but like, when you say this is how I feel, or when this happens, this is, those kinds of conversations. So you really will need to sort through what will work best for you. And then if there's a way that MSBA can assist, we absolutely will help you with that. And if it's an outside group, sometimes a more informal setting. Do you do board retreats at all?
We have.
We
Okay.
have in the past.
Okay.
Not
I think
with this
that was
board, though.
before
It's been some
any
time.
of.
Yeah,
my
not,
time.
not with this board.
Okay. And some will do that. They have to be in district, and it's just a more informal setting where you can have a candid conversation. Sometimes it's doing some interactive things where a facilitator will do, like the strength finders or, Myers-Briggs or something like that. So you get to learn a little bit more about one another. So those would be some other things that I would just toss out in response. And that would be something that you'd want to come to an agreement on, how you handle that.
And I think we've talked about having a more informal second meeting of the month,
Mhm.
like this
Yeah.
one. And then to Member Antonson's, collaborative processes are part of what I brought up tonight
Mhm.
before the meeting, is that, I saw Member Chair
Mhm.
at our opening, and we
Mhm.
talked in the hallway,
Mhm.
correct? So I had sent him an email, I didn't hear back, so
Mhm.
then I took the time to talk to him
Mhm.
in person there, and I think it's
Mhm.
helpful to do that, but then backing it up, having a more collaborative process. This is what I'm thinking of putting on the agenda.
Mhm.
What are you guys thinking would be good for that agenda?
Mhm.
What else do you want to talk about? Just, that's collaborating to me. So,
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And I
Yes.
think these small discussions with Superintendent Jacobson's going to be important, that maybe we mix them up. Who's with, like 2 or
Mhm.
3 at a time with him, kind of going over these items to kind of have more collaboration and discussion before
Mhm.
at the board table.
Mhm.
Because that's, like I say, I don't like surprises, and I don't like things
Mhm.
coming at me
Right.
when I don't know, and I don't know how to react, and it just makes me shut down and makes me
Mhm.
angry.
Mhm.
So if we have those discussions and have that positive interactions, I think that is really going to help our board. I believe that's a way we're going to be able to collaborate better,
Mhm.
but mix up the people that are in there, so then we'll have more time in small groups together.
Mhm.
I think that's going to be important for us.
And I think for board members to share exactly what you have said just
Yeah.
now, Member Corcoran, no surprises.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you need some time to digest, think through those kinds of things. That may not be the case for the entire board, but when you know one or more people feel that way, then that's something, I think, setting agendas, the interactions, I think is important to address and be mindful of.
Right, right.
Who's next?
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
Is your arm up too? Okay. I'm curious, Member Chair has, we put him in that position,
Mhm.
appointed him there a year and a half ago, and I don't know if you think back to previous chairs before you, is that how it would go? Like, was the chair reaching out to the team the week before? Was that part of your experience from the previous chairs?
Before I was put in the chair, I served under 2 different chairs.
Yeah.
And I kind of changed my practice based on what they did. They never reached out to me ever for anything. I would reach out to them and put
Mhm.
requests and say, I want to discuss certain items,
Mhm.
and they refused.
Mhm.
So I've told everybody on the board that if they have items they want to talk about, as long as there's support from more than one member, and
Mhm.
it seems like there's a common interest in discussing that, it's something that I would discuss with the superintendent to put on the proposal. I think this goes back to the handbook idea. I think it'd be a
Mhm.
really good idea to kind of structure
Process.
that.
Yep.
But yeah, to Member Antonson's point, when I was first elected, it was like I had the coffee with the incoming board chair, and it wasn't a constructive meeting. It was more of a threatening meeting, and I didn't like that, and
Mhm.
I've tried hard not to have that experience.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned, every December, I try to invite everybody together and say, what are your goals for the year?
Mhm.
Let's talk through this, let's understand, and we can build the agenda off of that.
Mhm.
And even in the more contentious period here, I did that last December, and I think I met with all board members except for one,
Mhm.
and I think that was beneficial.
Mhm.
So that's been the practice that I've
So what was
shared with board members.
beneficial?
The meeting, the having coffee, I think you and I
Oh,
met
okay.
at Village. I think it was great, and
Very good.
I've really enjoyed that.
What I hear this group saying is maybe identifying some norms for how we communicate and how we interact, and that maybe hasn't been established. At least that gives you a place to start from. I might be off base on that. Any
No, I
thoughts?
mean, I think that's pretty much
What you,
I'm hearing too.
Yep.
I mean, I'm,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so if during a board meeting, there's the casual conversation or whatever, what does that look like as an agenda item?
I think, well, for the rest, you can maybe correct me. What I'm hearing is that you might not have the informal conversations at the board table. It might be the opportunities to interact with one another. Anybody else want to comment on that?
Okay, but I thought you
it's-
were, in one of the things you were saying, I thought it was like during a board meeting where you would have,
I think that related to the agenda, maybe? Is that
Or the
what you're
closed
referencing?
session, I
So,
think you
The
mentioned.
closing the
Board
meeting.
retreat.
Oh, the close-
Collaboration.
oh, the close.
collaborating, right, so if you're gonna collaborate during a board meeting,
Oh, that would probably be, if you were going to set those you may want to use the closed session option. You might want to do it in a board retreat. I mean, yeah.
and if it's not during a board meeting, there has to be parameters to
Yes,
define
what that
what
means.
is board business.
Yes.
That we can't talk about, and what is business that pertains to the board that isn't board business, which I think goes along with Chair Rebline's comment about some folks thinking that we have been not true with the
Decisions
open
made
meeting-
outside of the
open
board
meeting
meeting.
laws,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. I think the collaboration away from the board table is more the getting to know you as a human being and similar interests, those kinds of things, I think is more what that's about, just knowing what makes you tick. You know, what one person needs a lot of information, no surprises, and another one might say, nope, you know, I'm showing up at the board meeting and I'm going to respond based on what I read here. And yeah, so I think it's those kinds of things. And really staying away from the board business. And then I think there's the norms of how you're interacting, and I think that's something that might be healthy for you to identify, and there's a number of ways, again, that you could do that, and how you would identify those. Each person could identify things that they think could be norms, and then bring it to the group to have a discussion. Yeah, there's a plethora of ways to get to that.
Did you have something? Did you want to talk about?
Well, I was just gonna, you know, just say that, again, just sort of being mindful of the time. We've been at it 2 hours, we're on question 21, and there's 71 questions. So that was sort of one point. And then another point is, I think, if our purpose is to move forward and grow and come together, I think kind of these side, I mean, I brought up some things in the past, but I said I'm not going to relitigate them. And I feel like, you know, there's some relitigating going on here without any back and forth discussion. So if we're truly here to move forward and come off on a more positive note, I think that we need to, again, actions speak louder than words. So let's keep moving forward positive. And obviously, this is very good discussion, but as I said, we have 50 more questions to go. And we have an agenda also this evening after this, so I just wanted to make that point.
Good point. And I do think that you're going to want to get to a point where you're going to have to let the past go, as hard as it is. It's hard for all of us, but I think you got to let it go, and then you move forward and assume good intent, positive intent. And we won't take as long on the rest of the questions. The largest area, no surprise, is probably the conduct and ethics with your group, and I think this is healthy for all of you, food for thought. One other comment I will make on Statement 21 is your process for orientating new board members, and you've talked about that a little bit this evening already. That's something that you would want to include in the handbook as well, if you haven't already, so, okay. All right, you want to put conduct and ethics aside for the time being? I think you've had lots of good things that have been brought up, and that's good. I mean, you don't always get these opportunities, so I've taken some notes, and we'll talk about them before we wrap up. So vision was your strongest area. Vision is your view of the future. What the takeaways here, you're going to see as you look at these responses, I'm guessing you have to feel good about the responses on pages 11 and 12, 13, and 14. Are there any statements here that you would like to comment on or address.
Aye.
These are really all reflected in your strategic plan. What it told me is that you are still governing based off of your current strategic plan, which is a very healthy thing, that you've kept that in the forefront, because that's really important.
I guess I'd like to comment on pages 12 and 13,
Okay?
especially when it comes to including stakeholders,
Yes.
communicating rationale. When I first started on the board, we only involved the community in half of our board meetings. They didn't come in the room, like this being our mid-month meeting. This meeting wouldn't have been available to the community. We changed that last January to keep community members. They are involved in every meeting. And we even found a way to include them in every single superintendent interview that we had. And we had people go back and watch them. So I see a disparity between 2026 and 2021 that doesn't make sense to me. In 2021, a lot of things were, it was an open door, but it was done behind closed doors, because if you didn't have the opportunity to be in the room, you weren't involved. And now,
I
You
don't
know
understand why
what,
you
you're
say
going
that.
off on tangents.
But now
This is
we
getting,
are,
like,
so-
ridiculous.
well, what I'm trying to understand, Member Tyson, is
It's,
what
We had a
what is the split in perception here?
Well, in
Well,
21, we had the hugest strategic plan group that I
Yeah.
can bear, I mean, we had, I don't know, 40? I mean, it was huge, right?
You had, I think you had about 50 people
50.
actually
It was
on
just
your
a huge
committee.
outpouring of support and collaboration.
Yeah.
So that's, that doesn't surprise
Yeah.
me at all. Now, I mean,
And
Well, we
I
haven't made that
understand
decision yet on what we're doing to build the new strategic plan. This was step one.
but what did
So
you
we may
say,
have,
Member Chair?
we may have
about-
50 or 60 people involved again.
Yeah.
correct. And so, yeah, this one is really, and so the responses don't surprise me, because a lot of you weren't here when this last strategic plan was created. And so there was a large stakeholder
There
group.
was.
The stakeholders that are a part of the process are advisory to the board always. It's not stakeholders coming in and saying this is how it will be. Somebody's been there.
Doorbell.
Okay. So, yeah, just for clarification on that, that should be your takeaway on how you've involved stakeholders. And that's
Okay.
something when
Yeah.
you do your next strategic plan, you want to talk about as well.
And we have
Okay, thank you.
stakeholders on our committees, our policy, our finance, all of our committees.
Yes.
Hence my confusion, Member Tyson. We involve a
So-
lot of people in every decision we make, and we do it openly and transparently, so it just caught me as unusual.
Well, why, well, you're saying because why someone said never and don't know,
Yeah,
that is surprising.
yeah,
That doesn't make any sense.
okay.
They must not have understood the question as well, maybe,
Okay.
and didn't.
Could be.
And perceive that
Yeah.
well.
Yep, absolutely. And then this discussion might help folks think or see things in a different way as well.
Yeah. I
Maybe,
agree.
maybe not.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions, statements you'd like to talk about?
There might be some, I guess, perhaps misunderstanding about what monitoring might be. So when we get presentations from the staff, and we listen to that, that could be considered monitoring. Another person might not consider that
See it
monitoring.
that same way? Mhm. And this question is really relating to whatever your goals are in your strategic plan. So it would be taking a look at your strategic plan and the monitoring that would happen there. Monitoring would probably be initiated through the superintendent. Monitoring, here's what we're observing, here's some reports, here's some feedback, however that might happen. So, and I'm going to guess that's probably what you saw in the past years. There's another one in here that talks about an annual review, doing kind of a deeper dive with the strategic plan. then you bring up a good point. You're getting a lot of other reports where it's feedback, it's for your consideration. I'm not sure how those reports are linked to items on the strategic plan, but that might be something if it's not happening. Are the agendas aligned with the strategic plan?
They are.
Okay.
And we have done annual reports on the strategic plan
Okay.
in the past. What I can only assume is the person who responded to this was maybe reading as if our strategic plan ended in 2025, and now
Right.
we're responding to a survey in 2026.
Missed the information.
So, good questions on that, thank you. Anything else on this section with vision?
No.
Okay. Structure, starting on page 15, is the organizational and the physical structure. A lot of the items under structure are the responsibility of your superintendent, who either is responsible for it or delegates that authority. So you see the word ensure listed there a number of times. I was just going to check and see if I had any question. Well, a good example would be on page 16 with staff. And it looks from your responses that you're all understanding that very well. So hiring, retention of staff, evaluating staff, and then the policy, the professional development for your staff. The lead responsibility to oversee that is your superintendents. And as board members, you can, I think, anticipate, whatever the term is, of some updates. Number of applicants, what we've done to retain staff, those sort of things, staff development. If there's anyone that is not aware of the evaluation process used for staff and you're curious about that, I think that's a fair question. When does it happen? Who evaluates? Is there a difference between a seasoned staff member and a brand-new teacher? Those kinds of things. But it's not to take a look at, like, I have a husband and wife team that live next door to me. It would not be for me on the board saying, I want to see their evaluation. And I think that goes without saying.
And I think we have addressed that in our strategic plan as well. So that's one
Yes.
component.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see, on page 17, the one statement that I highlight each time is 40. The process to include community and parent involvement in selecting curriculum, providing feedback, and other opportunities for involvement. So in fact, what has been known as the world's best workforce, and now it's CASER, the Comprehensive Achievement and Civic Readiness, does state that you should have parent and community involvement in selecting curriculum. How you do that can differ, and it sounds like that's happening.
Yep.
And then this statement is expanded a little bit too, to do exactly what you talked about before, looking for opportunities for parent and community involvement. And I've heard you say you've got them on maybe building committees and on some of your other committees, and I think that's really positive.
And we recently did purchase our ELA, our English Language Arts, and
Okay.
that was done in committee with parents there,
Okay.
community
Perfect.
members, as well as staff, and the Director of Teaching and Learning.
Yep, sounds
Yeah,
good.
and that was a breakout committee, because a lot of that work happens through our curriculum committee.
Very good. Okay. Let's see. Is there anything else under structure that you'd like to talk about? I didn't have too many items. Like the long-term, looking at page 18, long-term facilities plan, technology updates, those are all going to be administrative responsibilities. And as board members, you'll likely receive updates, reports.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think the ones that's concern me here is when you get to page 20 and we start talking about public input on the budgeting process.
I have that circled too.
And I don't recall how I answered this one, but the budget,
They shouldn't be.
we've actually recovered the budget quite a bit over the last few years. I mean,
Okay.
we were nearly in statutory operating debt when I started, and that's recovered quite a
That is not a
bit.
true
That's not
statement.
true.
But, you're right, it was negative, but, how do other groups do that. We have a finance committee. The finance committee is more of a, you obtain information and you provide input. What other districts do to kind of move this needle more into the blue and green?
Say more about your finance committee. Is it a committee of board members and staff?
Yeah, there's,
Okay.
And people,
yeah, there's
community.
typically.
And people, and
Yeah.
community members. Okay.
Typically 2 to 3 board members on it. We have our, it's our treasurer, our director of finance chairs that
Okay.
meeting, and then we
And
invite
Julie,
community
member
members to
Corcoran's
it
an
too.
accountant. She was on
Yeah.
that committee for many years,
Okay.
overseeing.
Good. So,
But,
and I think to answer your question, I think that is similar to what other districts do. Not all districts do something, and actually with just about every school that I visit with, we talk about this particular question. So having some outside community members as part of the process, I think is helpful. Folks that know something about finance, business, accounting is helpful, and they can also be spokespersons for you as well. You know, when people are talking about the school budget or decisions that the board has made, you've got some folks now that are knowledgeable that can speak in addition to you here.
Accounting.
Okay. Anything else with structure?
Well, just that, in Standard 347, seek public input during the budget process. 3 people put never.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to move that to a better understanding, and, because that does happen.
And maybe this discussion was helpful, too, to make
True.
sure that, that's usually my thinking on this. You've had the discussion now, and now I've learned this, and I'll see it a little bit differently as we move ahead. Okay. Accountability. There's some categories within accountability on page 22. The first set of questions there all talk about your strategic plan, the timely review, annually reviewing, celebrating the successes in 54, and I think we've kind of talked about those already, unless there's things that you want to go back to. On page 23, it talks about evaluating your superintendent, and with that, what process do you use here at Forest Lake Area Schools for evaluating your superintendent?
So I can actually speak to that at length, because it's, in prior years, we didn't. We would have, in my very first year on the board, we had a superintendent's review with Dr. Massey, but he wrote his goals the week before we had the review, so it seemed a little disingenuous.
No.
In the,
Well,
in.
That was kind of a derogatory comment on our
That
previous
wasn't actually how
superintendent. I'm not sure that we,
That was how the process worked.
No, he
It
has
was different
goals.
before that, though.
The
Through
contract,
the whole
I
year.
feel that we've corrected a lot of the issues on this page in the new superintendent contract. The new superintendent contract requires that the board and the superintendent agree on goals by a date in September.
Okay.
So we'll be discussing that very soon. And it also requires a review of the superintendent, and then that's actually tied to his salary increase in year 2 of the contract. So I feel like a lot of these nevers or don't know will shift now just through the superintendent's contract. He's going to make sure that we're doing this work.
Well, we've always had excellent superintendent contracts. Dr. Massey was very high in academic achievement and wrote very large, broad goals for himself, working with all the building principals one-on-one. I can't name them all off the top of my head, but that was reviewed. He would write notes, we would give feedback. And I think
Have the
when he
process.
wrote goals, they were things that some of us didn't even have in our heads because they're broad.
Weren't aware of it.
Yep.
yeah.
And
we
then
used-
our new superintendent's contract is 2 years instead of 3. So I'm not happy with that. That isn't the standard, but that's what we're going to have right now.
Okay. So with any other comments, and I'll make a few comments about this. Yeah, go ahead.
So I recall going into a closed session, you were asking how do we
Yes,
do it?
yes.
I mean, this is what I don't remember there being a form that I looked at or filled out. I think I did see his goals. I mean, honestly, I think I saw what his goals were somewhere along the way.
Mm-hmm.
But there really wasn't anything for me to reference or questions asking me what I thought. And so it was very much just an off-the-cuff sort of, that's how I remember it. Am I wrong? Because,
I
Well,
don't
we used to have
feel-
a
no.
different structure.
Okay,
In-
well, I'm
in
just
the old,
saying
and
that's
before
what it-
you guys started. I mean, we had a very, fill out the form, and we all filled it out and did our evaluation, and so that's kind of was that way for quite a
The
few
process.
years.
Okay.
And then it kind of changed, I
Okay.
think, because it seemed like it was just, he was doing such an amazing job with everything and his goals, and so I think maybe we didn't pursue it as strict as we had done it in the past.
Right.
And that's probably when you guys came on board, which we didn't have it as strict then, so.
Strict in terms of what?
Well, I mean, we didn't
I'm
have
not
it
sure what you
as
mean.
Structured.
As structured, I meant, structured. We didn't have a structure review
It
like,
kind of went from being a structured.
yes.
What goals we thought.
Yes,
To
he
then
made
allowing
'em.
the person at
Yes.
the top to develop some very strong goals of their own.
Right.
So
I
that
would-
was the
I
more of a
would-
shift in my mind.
I would challenge that, Member Tyson. I want to call this out because I feel it's
And you
important in
weren't
the
here, so
discussion.
you wouldn't know.
No, this did occur prior to my time where we had this shift, but you made the comment, we let the person at the top make the decision. This-
For his goals?
The six,
Yeah.
the six of us, no disrespect to
It's his area
Superintendent
of
Jacobson.
expertise, not ours.
Member Tyson, please let me finish.
Yeah, no.
No
because
disrespect to
you're
Superintendent
grandstanding
Tyson.
right now.
But the six of us are the people at the top.
No, we're not.
It is our job as the board to provide that direction to the superintendent. It's not the superintendent's job to tell the board the direction.
Wow, you have a different view of
Member
governance
Castle.
than I do.
It specifically says here, to what extent does the board have written goals? Not the superintendent have his own written goals. The board has the written goals for
So
the
you wanna write
superintendent.
the superintendent's
That's what
goals?
this says.
Okay.
This MSBA's
So if we
question,
didn't
Gil,
give him
isn't
the
it?
goals, then that question would be a negative.
Well, I
This
would-
question says that we give him the written goals, not just,
So you're going to write the
Talking.
superintendent's goals.
that's what
I
this
don't
says.
even know what to
Okay.
write. Okay.
If I might.
Please.
Yes,
Gil, would
and
you
I will
might,
come
you
in
might
too.
say that in most cases, this is something that's done in collaboration with the superintendent and the board.
Yes, so-
So the board, the superintendent might get some ideas from board members, look at the strategic plan, as you mentioned earlier, maybe even reference some of the items that you have in the superintendent rubric that you have.
Yes.
And then this is something that is co-authored between the board.
Correct.
The superintendent doesn't inform the board of what
Correct.
her or
Right.
his goals are.
Correct.
But it's done together, yeah.
So the discussion was healthy because you kind of creating that awareness again of what's happened in the past and moving forward. So the takeaways, a few things here for you. First of all, do it. That's a good thing because you'd be surprised. I've run into that. It has not happened for years and years and years. Do it. The chair usually takes the lead on coordinating it. Once in a while,
That's how we
there's a
structure the contract.
committee or something. The time of the year does not matter. It's whatever time of the year makes sense to you. Sometimes, it can be calendar, it can be fiscal year. Having a tool, so in your packet, the standards-based, goals and standards-based, this is a great tool that you can use. The individual board members should have feedback, so when you talk about something to evaluate based on, there should be something where you can provide feedback on that.
Right.
That goes to the board chair who does a summary of it. You can utilize closed session, and we recommend that you do that for that discussion. And then the other thing, the goals. So goals really should tie to your strategic plan. And taking a look at that, and usually whatever the things are that are happening in the 26-27 school year are the things that are going to be the goals for that calendar year. Most superintendents would like to have a professional development goal or two, and so they will do that. And then at the end, I suggest that, make sure that it is a collaborative process. It's not we're telling the superintendent or the superintendent's telling us, but you're having that conversation
it's
mutually agreed
merged.
upon. Yeah, is that helpful? And then a couple of resources too. My colleague Barb Doran does a superintendent evaluation third Thursday webinar that's posted on our website, so you can take a look at that. Plus, they will come and do an in-service for you, and you may want to consider that, of helping you use this tool, the goals and standards based, and helping, and taking a look at your strategic plan, kind of tying it all together for you, and even some of the metrics that you might use too, if you think that would be helpful, and especially for a newer board, just to get you on track with that. So I don't hear that there was a right or wrong necessarily here in the discussion, and I also understand sometimes, superintendents, things are just going so well, and then, you maybe don't put as much time in. I would encourage you to do something on an annual basis, and I think your superintendent would like that too.
Well, and as mentioned earlier, the contract will require it, so.
Yes, good point. Okay. So hopefully those comments were insightful for you. On page 24, a lot of this is about the student academic progress, and really the messaging is you're all about students and you're all about achievement and success, so you should be obsessing on that if there's anything that you do. So that's accountability. Anything you want to go back to? And then we'll wrap up with advocacy and communication. I did not have a lot of comments here for you on that one. Statement 62, just knowing that the advocacy portion of MSBA, our government relations team, we've kind of talked about that, really helped take the lead with that. You've got, your responses are interesting for 65, a process for responding to questions, concerns. How does that happen with your board, and how do you tie the chain of command in? Chain of responsibility, I should say, and chain of communication. Do you have and that would be something you can put in your handbook too, by the way, what you process, yes.
My experience so far is that we are all answering our own emails. I mean, there were some that the previous superintendent would pipe in on. I think, if he got them, or maybe somebody might have forwarded an email to him. I think I forwarded and maybe another member forwarded in a really kind of almost threatening email to him, so I was like, I'm not even gonna touch that one. But I think we're kind of all in our own digital world here, where we're just responding to people that email out, whether it's to the entire board or just me or.
Okay.
Well, in my experience, and what I've always followed is that I will talk to the superintendent before I respond, because I don't know the bigger picture, if it's special ed parent, or if it's a general ed parent, or if it's a sports question. So I don't respond until I've talked to the superintendent, because there's a bigger picture, right? And I don't want to respond in a way that offends anybody, that directs them, that gives them the wrong idea, because I don't know. I need to look to my superintendent to give me feedback on that.
Other?
For me, the key word here is process. So in manufacturing, you have to do this, then you do this, then you do this, then you do this, and you cannot skip anything. And you can't put one before the other. Can't heat treat before you, all this kind of stuff. So where's the process? If the process doesn't exist, which I would assume be in the handbook, which I haven't seen, then there is no process. Now, each person can do their own process, but that's not a board process. That's on their own self. So if somebody has their own process, well, then they can follow the process.
Yeah. Very good. Can we go to Member Corcoran, I think was first. Did you have a comment?
no.
before? Oh, I'm
No,
sorry. Okay.
Jill. Well, I think one point you just made that was really good, you said chain of command.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
the way I have, or was suggested that I do things is you get an email from, a lot of times we get a concerned parent with a very specific situation. I don't know the situation. I don't know if a principal's been involved. I don't know who's been involved. So I will reply general, you know, and say, thank you for sending your email. I hear
Right,
you.
you
I understand what you're
always
saying.
respond.
And then I will forward it to the superintendent or forward it to Director Wilson or whoever. I think that's an important thing. We can't be off on our own, sort of making, not promises, but like because now we're sticking our nose in something and talking about like a handbook. I have seen on another district's website, and I don't know the words exactly, but when you have the email to email the school board, it says, have you contacted, your building principal? Have you contacted whatever, like, have you done these 3 steps before? And not that we don't want to hear from people, of course we do, but I took a phone call once and I probably shouldn't have done that, because I can't offer any assistance, and the person sort of took it that I was maybe offering assistance. So I think, speaking of like process and handbook, of course we want people to contact us, of course we want to be available, but we cannot be out there on our own sort of promising things, or, because we don't know the whole story. We don't know that, we just don't know the whole
Right.
story. So we have to be careful, I believe, when we're
Careful
answering
is
emails and
key.
talking to folks.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Like I've been saying from the very beginning, that we are not in the day-to-day operations of the
Right,
district.
right.
We are policy makers.
Right.
Right.
The big picture.
We do the big picture. So those requests and things like that, we have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. And I agree that
Yep.
we can say thank you, but we can't fix anything. We have to advise and send it to the superintendent, so.
Yeah.
And
Go ahead.
what seems to have typically happened, though, is that the proper authority in the building in question eventually handles and then responds, and then the email trail will show that. And so, but again, it doesn't show that there is a process. So,
So you may want to have a
That's what happens.
conversation
Yeah.
about that.
yeah.
Chain of command, yeah.
And I think, chain of command, chain of responsibility, chain of communication, whatever that might be, and again, get that in your handbook. I really appreciate what Member Christensen has said too with responding. So in general, I think a way to handle that is when you get those emails, if it's an email that goes to all board members and the superintendent, and you all know that, let the superintendent handle it. If it goes to all board members but not the superintendent, let the board chair respond and just say, Gail, thank you so much for responding or for your question. I've CC'd our superintendent Jacobson on this email. He will respond. And then if you get the individual ones, I think it's always just best, because I wouldn't want to take a chance in this day and age to answer a question and then comes back to haunt you or it's incorrect. I always think then respond, just kindly, thank you so much, and CC your superintendent. And sometimes superintendent is well aware of all the things that are going on. There's more to the story, a lot more. I shouldn't say sometimes, usually all the time. And so just let them deal with that, I think, is probably best for those kinds of things.
Yeah, I would wholeheartedly agree with the whole conversation. I go back to one of those first documents that you talked about in terms of board governance, and I think that's what we're speaking to here.
Yeah.
And I think what Member Christensen is also saying in some words is that the person closest to the issue is the most capable to be able to solve the issue.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's difficult for all of the members of this board who live full lives and careers outside of
Yep.
this to be able to find out what happened with the assignment and why isn't it in the grade book or whatever it might be. And we want to help
Yep.
that parent right away.
Yep.
We want to get that parent, and that sometimes parents don't know where to go next.
Yep.
And so I think what you just described and the way that's been done before is.
Be
has been perfect.
a good way to
And
handle
You
that.
should always give a polite, supportive
Yes.
response, but you don't have to
Yeah.
try to get into the
Right.
nitty-gritty, because
Yeah.
it's not my area of expertise, and it certainly is the building principal or the director or superintendent.
And I also think, so thank you for that. I also think to not have an expectation from your superintendent to share the rest of the story, because sometimes there's data privacy things involved.
Right.
True.
And as a former board member, there's a lot of things that I learned about that I wish I did not know, because in our community, I mean, really, you've all been there. I mean, it can be people that your kids play hockey with, it can be people in your faith community, it can be your neighbors. So you don't need to, there's no reason to know those kinds of things. So sometimes if the superintendent doesn't provide that feedback, there might be a good reason why, other than maybe saying, yes, I responded. You know, I'll leave that up to superintendent to decide how he wants to handle that. But I think that would be a good topic of discussion at some point to come to consensus or agreement on that.
To that point, Gail, I think one of my most asked questions in situations like that was that taken care of?
Yeah.
Just it's a yes or no.
Yep.
Yes, it was taken
Yep.
care of.
And that's-
Sometimes
Mhm.
I'll ask for a little bit more detail because the parent will be making specific cases and it turns into more of a dialogue. But like you said, sometimes once you know something, you know something, and you don't want to know
You
all
can't
things.
unknow it, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Some of the things that you're saying, and then I'll go to you. Some of the things that you're talking about too, I think it's in the next one, 66, ensuring that the public knows about your role. And sometimes you just need to say that, we do have a process in place, and so have that elevator speech. Putting your board governance model on your website under the board, I don't think you have, or do you have? That might
That is a
just
great
be a
idea.
nice thing to do
No.
too. If people are looking, then it's pretty clear, this is expectations for board and
That's a good
expectations
idea.
for superintendent. And then, remember, Thiessen, what were you gonna? you were
Well,
gonna-
I was just waiting to finish up this area because I'd like to go back to 25, under,
Question or page
Wait, I'm
25,
sorry.
Member Tyson?
I might have flipped it over once more. I'm sorry, page 24, question 61, under accountability. One thing that I'd like to see move on this, because we did have 2 responses that were never, and regularly evaluate and adjust resources and strategies for closing achievement gaps to minimize their effectiveness. We are Achievement Integration District, so we always have review on that at the board table, and the board always know what those percentages are and how those gaps are closing. So I'm not certain why there would be responses as never, but maybe it's just a different interpretation that
Could be,
I don't understand. So, thank you.
absolutely. Anything else under advocacy and communication that you'd like to comment on, questions?
I suppose perhaps when we make up the handbook, that some of these communication items should be in there so
Possibly.
that people know, yes, it's on the website, or it comes out to the parents at the beginning of the year.
Yep.
Or something that people just are not aware of.
Good suggestion. I like that. Anything else with any of the questions? We made it through.
We did.
So as
you,
we
Gail.
kind of wind down, takeaways, anything that you would like to continue to discuss? I have some thoughts for you, but I'm going to hear from you first. Or the things that,
I think that everyone is going to have to really consider and work through that whole moving past the past. Like somehow get over a hump, of block here. And I don't know what it is. I think probably it's different for everybody, but
yeah,
we're all going to have to do that.
yeah. I think you need to
I think
sort that out.
Yeah.
And we can talk more
I think that's
about
an
options.
excellent point. I think it would be helpful if we could work on some things that would enhance how we get over that hump.
Mhm. Okay. Other takeaways?
Well, I just think this was really eye-opening. And I think, some of the nevers or don't understand, not sure. I think that was clear with some of maybe the interpretation of the questions. So I
Could've
think
been.
that we learned it was a board here.
Yep.
Some of those questions that we probably didn't fully understand.
Mhm.
And I guess it came out that we need a handbook
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the
Definitely.
big takeaway
Find
for
the one
me.
that we have.
We gotta find our handbook, and I think that will give guidance for communication and different tools that we need as a board. I think that's important.
Very
This
important.
was- But this
One-
was really good, Gail. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, one thing that I noted here was when we were discussing question 20 here, there was some talk of a strengths finder. And I've done a
Yes.
lot of those executive
Oh,
profiles
yes,
over the
strength
years.
Mhm.
I think that could be super beneficial during probably an onboarding process. It could be something that all board members would have to do just to get it caught up. But I think that could be really beneficial because we do have different ways of getting work done. We do have different ways of, I guess, celebrating success. We have different ways of approaching different questions. And if you don't know that about the person sitting next to you, I mean, just for example, I'm very tactical, I'm very data-driven, and that's just, and being chair, that's kind of how I manage the boardroom. It's the process. I've got the book here somewhere. This is the process we work through, and remember Cass talked about process a lot, so I know that he's probably similar to me in that respect, but I couldn't say it definitively. And there are other people that look at things more artfully or emotionally, and I know in business that can be a challenge. So why wouldn't it be a challenge at this table, especially if you don't know about the person who's sitting next to you or what their approach is? You know, the tactical approach can be looked at as callous by somebody who's emotionally addressing a situation. So I think that could be really helpful.
I would suggest that perhaps we could put in the minutes that if we have handled one of these questions during a board meeting, that the minutes kind of specifically say that, yes, we have whatever the wording is in here.
Tie it
And so
back.
then that it's, so that it's in the minutes, and when we review the minutes, and I'm like, oh, yes, you know, I know that I heard all this, but yes, that addresses that topic.
Ties to the staff evaluation question or something that would be pretty easy to do, something that, yeah,
Almost
the
like
long-term care, the the facility plan, those kinds of things, and tie that back to. Yeah. Were you going to say something?
So, yeah, I have a, no. You-
Sorry, I was just gonna say, I feel like, in theory, that could be a good idea. In reality, I'm not sure, like, who would keep track of that, and, I mean, who inserts that, and then it's someone's opinion, like, I don't think we did that question, I think we did that question. I mean, I wonder if there's other ways to do that besides in the minutes. I mean, the minutes are already difficult and time-consuming enough. I wonder if there's a different way to do that. I'm just not sure how that would work in
Well, maybe we
reality.
add it to an
Ever seen
agenda
that?
item once in a while, or we think of ways to incorporate that into our agendas somehow. Work
Yeah,
on
I'm
a
just looking
specific
for a way
topic or
for that,
certain-
we all acknowledge that that happened.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's good.
So minutes, something.
We
I-
could,
I
we could
just-
tie it to the agenda where we basically say like, you know, that
If
this
it
is the
goes to-
category that we're, I don't know, advocacy and communication. I'm not gonna come up with a good example, but maybe
Tie it
when we
into-
add it to the agenda, I know like the finance one's easy, because when we're talking about the audit, and we just call it out in the agenda, this is a finance topic, or this is tied to student achievement. Remember Tyson mentioned the discussion of achievement integration. That question surprised me as well, because we've approved it now twice in the last 16 months. So we've absolutely addressed achievement gaps. And, but yeah, if you tie the benchmarks that we're looking for to the creation of the agenda, that gives something the board chair and the superintendent, when we're building it, to make sure we hit all of the things. The one as board chair, the ones I hyper-focus on is making sure that we're addressing academic achievement. We know what's going on in the buildings. We have regular presentations from different buildings to show us what makes them unique and how they're doing. And then the financial piece, that's easy because there's a lot of statute-driven things there. But that can be helpful as we generate
I think,
agendas.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I think you can lean on your superintendent too. You know, and I said before, he's probably taken notes, you know, either writing them down or in his mind to make sure, oh yes, I'm gonna address this, make sure it's very clear at upcoming board meetings. So you could try that as well, I think, just,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know if I have an immediate idea on how we would do that, but let me do some thinking on that.
Yeah.
Think
And
about
come
it in
back
your
to that.
sleep tonight.
Yeah.
Play your saxophone.
Play your saxophone. Remember Tyson?
I just have one more thing to add. Member Chair talked about, you know, team building. And I know when I served on 916, the Intermediate District Board, we did some fun team building events. Or just quickly before our meeting started, we get together earlier and do a team building event in the lunchroom. And also, MSBA, we did Clifton, Allen, and then had a retreat, and it is so insightful. You learn people's communication styles, you learn how they process information, what they need. It's very good. So maybe we could plan some team building
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
We used Legos once, we used lock room, what are those called? Yeah. So,
And that's where my question was going to go earlier, is I think that there's some genuine energy in the room to find ways to come together
Yes.
and all row in the boat in the same direction and work as a
Right.
team.
The ultimate
And
goal.
I'd like to think through any sort of strategy or way that I can support that. When I think of, you know, one of the goals I probably will have as a superintendent, that might be one of them. And I think I have to play a key cog in that solution.
Good.
Gil, with your travels throughout the state and interaction with different boards, we have shared that this particular board and this district has not really used study sessions or work sessions a great deal. I'm not talking about closed sessions.
Right.
We do
No.
that. But study sessions and work sessions, not a business meeting. I believe that there are some districts that even have one business meeting per month and the other one is a study session.
Yeah.
That lowers the energy and creates more
Yeah.
cross-board member dialogue. Can you share with us, what are some patterns you've seen and how different boards do this? And then just to speak to the fact that these are open meetings as well.
Correct,
Yes.
correct, yeah.
Okay.
I was surprised that you didn't have study sessions. I made an
No,
assumption, I
we've
shouldn't have made
asked
that.
for 'em.
So there was a day and time where it was a regular business meeting and it was once a month. And then schools started to realize that you can take care of a lot of additional business and have discussions at a study session. I would say most schools have once a month their regular business meeting and then a second meeting during the month that is a study session where you can really do that deeper dive, bring in folks that can help share updates, research information to help you make a decision. Both are subject to the open meeting law. Usually, most of your decisions, your motions, your action items will be at the regular business meeting, but you can certainly do that at a study session. And as long as you have them posted at the beginning of the year, first Monday of the month and third Monday of the month, then you can update the agenda and approve it at the meeting as compared to a special session for one topic. You don't have that flexibility. The other thing you could do is create those study sessions, and if there's not enough business, you don't have to have it either. And once in a while that happens. Or you could dip your toe in. You could try it on an every other month basis or quarterly, something like that, just to get kind of the idea of how that would work. And yeah, and it would be the same as your regular meetings. It's just that you'd be doing that deeper dive into particular topics. And it could be your own professional development too.
Yeah. But you see some districts, they take no business action on study sessions. It
Right.
is just dialogue.
Yep.
And then my next question would be, does MSBA ever facilitate, like the Strengths Finder or the 4-color personality?
We don't have a tool like that.
Okay.
I might be able to give you some ideas of who does some of those that we've maybe used for our own staff, but that's not something that we have done. Not in that organized type of way, I guess. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just commenting, Teamworks does some of that work.
You know, my colleague, from Columbia Heights, I believe. They've always done workshops on the second meeting of the month, and it's just more relaxed. It's more informal. They sit at a smaller table instead of a big
Okay.
board table, and it really has helped their board to just make those decisions at the board table clear, defined, and unified. So I think it would be a great idea.
I like the idea too.
What- Do you think partly too, I mean, this week we're trying to meet with you on this topic, like.
On the budget.
it might be- I just wonder if something like those discussions would be something that we would do at a work session as opposed to you and another administrator trying to find time and then I had to cancel, you know what I mean, just logistically.
Yeah, certainly could.
Okay.
Yeah, I just was asking the question so that
Yeah.
everybody
Right.
could begin to think
Oh,
about
I'm
this
glad you
and
did.
what options
There.
are open. We don't have to just always do it the way we've always done
Yeah.
things.
Right.
And if this isn't working right now, then let's try some different
Something
ideas.
different.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Congratulations on working your way through this. I'm going to just ask, is this the first time that you've had more of a candid conversation like you've had this evening about how you interact? So I'm,
Aside from
I-
experiencing it,
Yeah,
yes.
aside from experiencing, yeah, and so I think, congratulations on that. I mean, that's a hard thing to do, and you were all civil about it and respectful, and I think you need to be proud of that. I think your takeaway, again, is to know that we're going to have differences, and always look at what your mission is. What are you here for? And sometimes you just have to swallow hard and move on. So, but it does seem like that's a conversation you're going to want to continue in identifying some norms and maybe waiting until your new board member is, or after elections, kind of determine that timeline for that. I think would be healthy, yeah.
And perhaps to come up with some differentiations, and different areas might vary, but differentiation between, okay, if it happens every board meeting, well then yes, that's always. But could it also be always if it's planned on doing it every other month?
Yeah.
Then that would be always in that case. So to make the differentiations between how
Would
we
be helpful.
determine whether it's always, never, most of the
Absolutely.
time. Because these would likely change quite a bit.
Yep, absolutely.
You said you were going to have some summary notes at the end of all of this. Is
So
that kind of what we just worked
I will
through?
create that and email it to you and
Okay.
Superintendent Jacobson, and then you can, I was going to say at a study session, but
Yeah.
then you can continue that discussion. And a couple other things I'll maybe add is you talked about doing an annual assessment. I think
Yeah.
there were some things there too that I'll highlight for you. There's not a lot. I mean, I think you pretty much identified the things that, as far as moving on, so, very
Okay.
good.
Well, again, going back to the executive profile, I'm the goal-driven individual. How do you recommend we move forward with the strategic plan, building out the new one? It's 2020 to 2025, and we're almost done with 2026.
Yes.
So how do we make that logical step from this discussion to that discussion?
So I think that you may want to continue that discussion. You definitely are at the point where you want to recreate your strategic plan, go back and look at it. There's a number of options that we could talk about. I would be absolutely thrilled to work with you on it again, to bring that past experience forward into this next one. And deciding if, committee, surveys, listening sessions, all those kind of things. I do think that you want to make sure that you do something after the first of the year when you have your new board in place versus starting now. I mean, you obviously can have some conversations now to get that moving forward. And I guess it's really up to you if you want me to work with your superintendent to bring recommendations, or if you
Yeah,
want me to, present another time talking about options. I'm pretty flexible.
Unless somebody at the table objects, I think it would be a really good idea for you and Superintendent Jacobson to
Sure.
get together.
We can certainly do that. And
Part of the plan was to use that the outputs of this discussion tonight to help formulate the goals that we're going to present to the board
To move
next
you
month
forward.
for
Right.
him. So I think that, that could be extremely beneficial.
Okay.
Especially from the outside looking in, you've heard a lot
Yep.
from us tonight.
absolutely.
I'm sure you could be really helpful with Superintendent Jacobson to
Okay.
kind of formulate
Sounds
draft
good.
number one of those goals.
Absolutely.
So that-
We'll plan to do that. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Enjoy the
you.
rest
Thank
of
you
your
for being
meeting,
here.
too.
Thank you for
Yeah.
driving all the way up here.
Oh, that was not a problem, not a problem.
All right,
And
we
keep up the
are,
good work that you already, that good momentum that you have from this discussion, too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Take care.
Wonderful.
Have a great night.
Yeah, drive safe.
Yes, I will.
we are nearly 3 hours into the meeting. There
Take
isn't
a
a
short recess.
whole lot here, but that's exactly what I was going to recommend.
5-minute recess.
So without objection, we'll recess for approximately 10 minutes when board members are back in the 5?
5 minutes.
Approximately 5 minutes. All right, we are in recess. All right, now I'll call the Forest Lake Area Schools regular school board meeting for Wednesday, August 26th, back into session. Member Clerk, please take the roll call of attendance.
Okay, Member Castle.
Here.
Member Christensen.
Here.
Member Antonsen is here. Member Corcoran.
Here.
Member Tyson.
Here.
And Member Rebeline.
Here.
Everybody's here.
All right, thank you. The next item on the agenda is scheduled and unscheduled visitors and green cards. I do not see any for us, so we will move on to approving the consent agenda. Before we do, is there any item that a member would like to pull from the consent agenda?
Yes, Member Chair, I'd like to pull 6-4 through 7, please.
6-4 through 6-7. Yes. Any other items that we would like to pull? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve 6.1 through 6.3.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right, motion carries. The consent agenda is approved. Member Tyson, before we take a motion on items 6.4 through 6.7, do you want to address them individually, or would you be okay with bundling them into a
I'm
single
going to
motion?
bundle them. if
Okay. In that case, I
works.
would take a motion to approve items 6.4 through 6.7.
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Member Tyson.
Okay, so a couple of things I noticed, and these are just things that refer to the board work. Good governance language is more calling board members who aren't officers directors instead of members. I noticed that in a couple of the two handbooks, the junior FLOMS and the elementary. Also, in one of them, Julie Corcoran is not listed as vice chair.
Oh.
And I believe that's in FLOMS. And then the other thing I noticed is that then the high school and the community school handbooks, the board is not listed. So I think for continuity's sake, we might want to have it in all of them or have it in
Those are,
none of them. But I think it should be in all of
I think
them.
it should be in all of them.
I think those are excellent observations.
If I might.
Yeah.
I just have one more thing, then I'm done with what I want to
Sure.
add. The last thing to add, and I've noticed this being Director of District 6 on colleagues' websites, is that they list the date of either of the school year or the term, because, board members turn over
Oh,
in
yeah.
January, so a parent might be contacting a board member who's no longer on the board.
Catch.
So I've seen it done two ways, where you
Yep.
can just make sure the date is at the top, and then they can refer to, or listing the term end.
Or to point to the website where they can see what the change is when the change happens.
You could do that. I would think that people would want to talk about it, do the admin assistants type them up or make corrections?
That's, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know who in the building, whether it's
Okay.
one of the administrators themselves or whether they had an administrative assistant, but I think we can easily get these things cleaned up.
Yeah.
Can I ask you to repeat, Member Tyson, your very first one?
I mentioned that,
Was it the difference between some are directors, some are members?
right,
Oh.
so Member Christensen and I are not officers, but we have been, but this school year we're not, so we should be called directors, not members.
Yes.
But
Is that for,
Everybody.
that would be for anybody, whether you
Yes.
had been in an officer position or not, correct? I mean,
Yeah,
that's- oh, okay.
and so if it
I just thought
rotated,
I didn't know why you were prefacing it like that, so I just wanted to make sure, like,
so if it changed next year and I was clerk and you weren't,
Yeah.
you'd be listed as Director
Yeah,
Hankinson
okay. Yeah.
and so forth.
So then would we keep that terminology in all, so instead of saying Member Tyson, I would say Director Tyson?
Well, I think when we're around the board, we're members
Oh.
together, so that's why that is used, but in other listings, your terminology is a director of the Board of Education is
Correct.
what a lot of
Yes.
people call it.
Would it be permissible, or would it please the board if we just said board member? The only reason why I say that is those officer and those title changes happen in January, and these
True.
handbooks are typically updated during the summer months.
Right.
So there
That's
might
right, I
be
thought of
some,
that.
a clumsy overlap there.
Yeah.
Where we could just simply say board member and then direct them to the board, to the website
Oh,
for.
that'll be
yeah.
updated.
Yeah, let's do that.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going off of what I had learned on other websites and other
Mhm.
districts and colleagues, so.
Okay. So,
And I had one more.
yes.
Were we done talking about that?
Well, I was going to offer a motion to accept that, but if you have another, anything that would coincide
No.
with that? No? Okay, so Superintendent Jacobson, can you help me craft a motion from what we heard?
Excuse me, do we need a motion, or
Do
can
we
we
need a
just,
motion?
what have we said, advise, or do we need a motion to
Well, if we-
direct to?
If we approve the motion as it is, we'll be approving the documents as they're presented. So
We
if
have
we
to
want to have some
amend the
changes, we'll
documents.
just offer an amendment to
Mm-hmm.
the documents as stated by Member Tyson. I think they were all great
Oh.
suggestions.
That would probably work.
Might I offer this motion to approve the documents with the necessary additions of all handbooks, student handbooks, having our board members listed within, as well as a reference to our website where they could go and find the official titles, I suppose that's not the right
Of the
word there.
current board members.
And term links.
Perfect,
Term
okay.
limits,
I
yeah.
make the motion as Superintendent Jacobson just announced to
Stated.
us. Becky, did that, you capture that? Wonderful. Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the motion to amend, as Member Tyson offered. Is there any discussion on that? All right, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Member Christensen?
I just wanted to highlight something on the high school student handbook, and it's on page 27, and it's talking about the bell-to-bell no-cell procedure, which is effective this school year, and I just know that a lot of parents are concerned, with cell phone use, and our elementary school does a great job with no devices, no smartwatches, anything K-5. Middle school has done a really great job over the years, also doing the same bell-to-bell no-cell, and I know it's been a little more difficult in the high school with the older kids, and I just want to acknowledge that, and maybe Mr. Caldwell could speak to it a little bit, but I know that the high school has done a really great job of sort of publicizing that or getting people ready for that. And so, it says here, the expectation from 7:45 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. every day, all personal cell phones and communication devices, including earbuds and smartwatches, must be either left at home, locked in your car, or stored in a locker, and it goes through some different consequences. So I think that's something that we've been talking about here at the board table, having a cell phone policy, and I just want to commend the high school and wish them the best of luck this year, getting everyone on board with that. But I know it's a concern of our parents, so I appreciate that.
Perfect. Member Entenson?
Well, so I have that written down as well, and I am a big proponent of less distractions for the kids. I was reading it and I'm like, well, okay, because I know that most of the kids at the high school don't actually have a locker, or at least that's my understanding. That we don't have lockers for everybody. They don't all have lockers. You seek one out from the office. Whoops, if you want a locker. So, and if you don't have a locker and a car to leave it in, so you absolutely can't bring it in the building at all whatsoever. I mean, that's the expectation there, because
I think-
I'm wondering if
Would
this
you like
is
to address that?
realistic, or people, are they allowed to put them in their bag? Like what,
Please.
because this is,
We'll
you know,
get some
it's
clarification.
Stolen cell
Have you seen what Stillwater?
Is that your cell phone
This
be
works
stolen?
very-
We're asking them to leave them home in their car or not bring them.
Yeah.
If they do have them and they have them on their person, they need to be silenced and away. If we see the actual cell phone, it's an
At-
issue.
at
So if
any
it's in
time
your
in your
pocket,
backpack.
no big deal. If it's in your bag, no big deal.
Okay.
We don't want to cause stress, more stress,
adjust this
in our high school students by forcing them not to have them on them.
Right.
It will cause anxiety to go through the roof.
Oh, yeah.
Most of the families that I have spoken to are totally fine as long as they can keep it in their bag. So if something did happen,
Yeah.
that they could reach into their bag, they could get a hold of mom and dad or whatever.
okay, so,
I've been keeping a tally on my desk of people reaching out. I've had one negative comment come to me, Everything else has been positive, and it's been less than 15.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
Should this be adjusted then to say that they could keep it in their backpack? Because this is like
the
not really.
expectation
Yeah,
is here,
yeah,
as long as
Reality.
we don't see them.
okay.
We don't
that
want to
doesn't-
write it so black and white that
Okay.
it has to be this or this.
Okay, 'cause they're
There's
gonna
some
be taking
flexibility. The
this-
other piece in theirs, we're asking them to put smartwatches away. As long as they're not using their smartwatch, communicating, having it connected to their phone or whatever, we are not going to go so far as to say you absolutely cannot have a smartwatch on your wrist.
Okay.
Ideally, we would want them to put it away. We can certainly adjust it to make it more gray in the handbook, but the more gray we have it there,
True.
Yeah,
this is the expectation. We want to create some gray in there so people can learn how to.
okay.
Yes, they, yeah, okay. Sorry, again, I appreciate you coming up and talking.
Yeah, not a
Yeah.
problem.
But because,
Hang out.
oh,
Yeah. Member Tyson?
So, thank you for providing that information. When I was reading this, you know, we recently know that the Stillwater School District went through this, and they presented on it at the leadership conference. I think some of us heard it.
And we learned a lot from talking to our friends at Stillwater.
Yeah, so they had bought the collection boxes, but we aren't doing that.
We're not.
Because we found, what they found out is that the collection boxes weren't even needed,
Correct.
and they had made that investment. So we aren't going that
Correct.
route at all.
We have 2 cell phone jails that we have purchased. One is in Miss Miller's office, one is in Miss Lang's office.
So we do have, okay.
Yes, so if your phone comes to the office, we'll write the name on it, we'll call the parents. It will
Okay.
be in Miss Lang or Miss Miller's office, and we'll work with the parents on how they want to get that back.
And we
Most
have
of the
two.
parents that I've talked to said it can stay there for 2 weeks, and then we'll come to it.
Oh, boy. I know it was a huge adjustment for their district, but they said that so many positive things resulted from that, with how the parents felt and how the students felt and all the way around. So I'm hopeful that it'll be a smooth transition for everyone.
And we'll be flexible, and we'll change where we need to.
And I've got a couple of things to add to that point. This is part of the reason we write policy in the manner that we do. It gives administration some discretion to apply the policies.
Practices.
Yeah, within practices that make sense for the school, make sense for the class, make sense for the administration, and make sense for the students. So I'd like to point out that there is medical exceptions here. We recognize that some students have a medical need for devices at times, but we also expect that that won't be abused. I don't know if Principal Caldwell wants to address that at all, or if that's enough.
We want to be common sense. We have diabetics, we have people with heart issues and kidney issues and all kinds of stuff, that their bodies are being monitored by devices on their cell phones. Our staff knows it, and we want to be able to work with those families so the student can go up to the teacher and say, look, my alarm just went off on my cell phone. I have to go get my glucose checked, or whatever it is. We don't want to take that away from them. But those students should also not have their cell phones out in front of the class texting and on Instagram and
Yep.
all those things. We want to work with them, not
It's gonna be interesting.
make it an absolute thou shall not, and be providing all kinds of iPads and things like that just to skirt the issue in the first place.
right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you. It's
I'm wishing good luck and
Yeah.
that this is.
It'll be a work in progress.
I know.
boy.
but-
I hope there's a lot of confidence behind these good lucks.
Yeah.
We'll get it done.
No,
Help each other,
absolutely.
not look at their
They're
phone.
good
Sure.
wishes.
A lot of hope and encouragement behind the good luck, because I think it's all for the better, so.
It's gonna be good for them.
Is there any additional discussion?
Oh, on that.
Yeah, if not, that we have a motion on the table to approve items 6.4 through 6.7.
Yeah.
Well, I have I have a question about the high school one.
Okay, that would
Can
be,
I-
yeah, that would be
yeah.
applicable now.
Okay, so I was reading through the high school handbook, and I honestly, I didn't even get to the other ones, because when I talked to you, or read the email, I mistook it for that we were gonna hold on all of these and send them.
Oh, yeah.
So I didn't get through the community school, but anyway, on page 14 of the high school handbook, it has student behavior, and it has a discipline policy. It has a link to the discipline policy. And you go to the discipline policy, which has been stuck for a while, I believe. Then within the discipline policy, it has a complaint procedure. it states that the procedure will be referenced in the student handbook, available for view within the policy, which I didn't see it in policy 515 when I went to policy 515. And I just don't know, I can't remember now because it's been so long since we were working on that. Is it the same, or is it still sitting in the policy committee?
Still in committee.
Yeah, so it's been so long. So anyway, it says, here, page 14, student behavior discipline links, and then you go to the discipline policy. It's talking about a form that you can fill out, a complaint procedure, and it's not in the policy. And then you go back to the book, and you go down to page 26, discipline complaint form. And first of all, I'm kind of, at this point, I was like, dang, it's a hard thing to hunt down in the forest here, is this discipline complaint form. And then also on the discipline complaint form, it gives a 2-day time period from the time of school action for someone to fill it out and get it here. And so I think, I just think that if someone wanted something like that, it should be a lot easier to find than what I went through finding it here. And then it says the school then has, that's part of our policy, has 3 days to investigate. I think there's multiple things to look at, but I think the process to find that discipline complaint form, or maybe appeal form,
Okay.
whatever, is too difficult. I don't know where it is even on our website, to be honest with you. So,
So perhaps there could be a link not only to the policy, but to that form.
To the form itself as well.
Yeah.
yeah, like
The
right,
form has to be given in paper by the principal.
pardon me?
The form itself has to be requested of the principal, and the principal gives them the form.
Oh, they don't print it
It's
up.
not readily available to anyone.
Okay, but I mean, so appreciate you. I'm
So
so
then it-
sorry,
so then-
everybody.
So then it should
Trying
say
to make
that,
sure people
yes.
can hear me, and I keep, huh?
Then it should say that.
Well, right, and I mean, yeah,
Because
I
it's
think
actually
that,
attached in here.
and I
Yeah.
think
It's
it's,
attached.
yeah, I just think that
But if they have to get it
if
from the
someone has
principal.
questions and saying, hey, I don't think this is right, maybe they know to call Mr. Caldwell. I mean, and people might know to call the principal,
But
or
it's-
email the principal, and then maybe,
It should say it in there, though.
yes.
If that's
I
what
mean, like,
has to
here's
be
the
done.
process, and just, it shouldn't be, okay, and then I read through this 20-some page document, and on 15 of the discipline policy, there it is, and then I forgot to write that down, like what page of the policy it was on. There's a lot of reading to find that.
Mr. Caldwell, can I ask you to come forward again?
In practice, when there's major discipline with a student, this is one of the things we'll go over with the families when they come in. And our deans and APs are really, really good at knowing, how is this going to go? And anybody who really pushes back and they say, we need to go talk to Mr. Caldwell, the first thing out of their mouths is, look, we have an appeal process, here's a form that you can fill out. A lot of times they will just come sit in my office and we'll talk about it, and we'll fill out the form together or whatever, and then I will investigate, we'll make action at that point. Since this was put in place, I believe it was through state legislature, I think we've had 2 people use this form.
Yeah, but probably, I mean, I'm thinking maybe part of the reason only 2 people have used it is because they don't know where it is, like, it exists.
And you may be right, part of what happens with this, by the time they get the form filled out, and I believe all this is written out in statute, I'm sort of on the spot here. By the time they get it, fill it out and get it back to me and we investigate, the discipline's done, the kid's back in school.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
So whatever happens, so the work on changing it is what we might change in the system to reflect an error that we may have made, and then we put corrective action in place.
But I think she's talking
Makes
about
sense.
before we even get to that point. So how do they even know to do
You know,
through
and
that?
When their child gets in trouble, it's
But-
through a conversation
But
with
maybe
us.
it's not always gonna be,
Yep.
well, Mrs. Antonsen, your kid's in trouble, come to the office, please. Maybe it's your kid's in trouble, okay, and you're dealing with it, and then you kind of going through this process of figuring out what has happened, and the communication breaks down, you don't get to talk to the principal?
Mm.
or
We
the-
can certainly
You know what
revise
I'm
that and
saying,
make
like
it more right
Or
out
even
there
just
in front
maybe
of everybody.
document that within the steps.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Member
just,
Castle
like,
is
if
saying-
you have a grievance with the discipline, like, here's
Yeah.
what you do, call
There's
the
a-
principal, there's a form, and instead of,
Absolutely.
you know,
Yep.
yeah.
absolutely.
Yep, we could outline some of that and just.
This is a document that is constantly edited. It changes all the time. I mean, when policy committee comes in and
Oh.
changes something, this
Right.
this
Yeah.
gets changed, so.
I get this.
Anything that we talk about tonight will get changed, and it will probably be changed again before it comes to the board.
Yeah.
Again, because the legislature meets, policy meets,
Yeah.
this is constantly being
Yes.
I-
updated.
And thanks
So
for
I-
coming up again and talking.
No, not a
Yeah.
problem, and
But
we can work on that and make that more clear,
I also
absolutely.
want to say that I think when it references policy 515, it might be like the ancient policy 515.
It
Because I
is.
swear,
It
I saw.
references the
this
one that is
form
currently
when-
in our, on our webpage as the active policy.
Correct.
That I
This
know.
one has?
Yeah,
All the
the
links-
references to the active policy.
Yeah, all the
Okay.
links that are in our handbooks
Okay.
link current active policy that we have. It doesn't talk about stuff that policy committee's still working
All
on.
right, okay.
That I know for
Oh,
an absolute
right,
fact.
yeah,
I had a
okay.
whole team that works
But-
on this, and I look at it briefly just to make sure that the big things are there. And some of these things we'll dive in tomorrow, and that's not a problem to make that,
Mm-hmm.
I have
those
a,
steps very
I
clear.
have a question which I think kind of piggybacks on what Member Antonsen's asking here. And I'm kind of questioning the feasibility. But would it be feasible that if it were just a requirement, if there was a disciplinary action, it just has to be offered that, hey, we have this complaint? Process you can follow?
We can put that in a written thing. I mean, I'm not in on every single discipline thing that happens. I know
Yeah.
our deans talk about this frequently. Because
Okay.
as you can imagine, parents get upset and they say, look, if there's a problem, we have a disciplinary complaint form. It's readily available.
Okay, do we need to add that to the handbook, or is this adequate for that?
Say that again. Do we need to add what?
Do we need to add some sort of a directive that it's required that parents be offered this discipline?
Well, I think they
complaint
should
procedure?
know about it. Like, it
Yeah.
doesn't,
We can-
you know, somewhere within the handbook, it says, instead of flipping from one thing to the next, it's just too much reading. If you're having an issue, like, you just kind of want to know.
Yeah.
Well, I
Do I-
like Mark's idea.
Yeah, I like Mark, I
Yes.
think Mark's idea is
Absolutely.
a good one,
think
is
that
that,
would
we
work.
just make note
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
that if there is a discipline complaint form, if you,
Yes,
if you'd like to
yes.
have a copy of it, you would request that of your child's principal.
Right.
Because I could even say that a parent could come in, have a conference with the dean, go home, reflect on it more and say, you know, I wanna revisit this.
Yeah.
And then I think that they can look in the handbook and there it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
That-
Yes.
That's kind of what page 26 already says.
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay.
but it was, it does, but can we just put the whole idea and
It
the thought
does.
together in one spot? Like, that's what I'm saying.
So it literally says that. Okay, better.
So to mention that there's a complaint form right in the handbook.
But it's in the front office that you would pick it up from.
Yeah,
You-
yeah.
The discussion on student behavior and discipline started on page 14 of the student handbook.
Yeah.
And it was at page 26 where the form is, and more of what we're talking about. So just think it should be more cohesive in one spot. That's all I was.
So mention that
I think
there
that
is-
makes sense.
Mention there's a form on page 14 right away.
Yeah, or, yes. And whatever else is on page 26.
So we'll have to kick
So
that
what
to
if
the
we,
Policy committee.
what if we made a motion just to direct administration to add a note to the complaint process under student behavior and discipline in the
So
handbook?
moved.
So moved?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just do it.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, and a second. This is just a directive, so it would, it wouldn't be an amendment or anything. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, that motion carries. That brings us back to the, we're going to accept the handbook as presented, and administration will go back and address this issue
Yes.
later. I didn't want to make this an amendment specifically because I didn't want to hold this up while we start school next week.
Yeah.
All right, so do we have any other discussions on the motion on the table, which is to approve 6.4 through 6.7? now as amended by Member Tyson's amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, that motion carries. We are through the consent agenda, which brings us to action item 7.1, vendor list review and discussion. Superintendent Jacobson.
Well, actually, we're going to invite up
I'm sorry. Director Remberg-Idy. It's even written on here.
Good evening, Board. Thank you for having me tonight. This is our second time that we have, through the board meeting, done our listing of the vendor history report. So this year was included the additional 2 years. So last year we did 25-26 year to date, and then we were able to wrap that up through the audit and all of the accounts payable information. So we updated that with the final information for 25, and then FY 26, the list is there year to date. So again, that same process will happen next year. Of note, as you know, we have nearly 2,000 vendors that we work with throughout the district and throughout the year. All funds are covered through this vendor report. So I think that's really important to know when we talk about our student activity accounts, right? So our concession stands, you're saying, wow, that's some candy you're buying, right? From Vernix. But that is, our student concessions that we're reselling and things like that. So Fund 50 for our student activities. Also, all of our construction is in there. So we know that we have very large dollars amounts going to our construction firms. And then some of the biggest payments are related to our salary and benefits. So again, those U.S. Treasuries and the TRA, PERA retirement funds. So again, both the employee and employer contribution going. There is also some other benefits with medical reimbursements that go through that. So you may see, some employees' names that, have larger amounts, and sometimes that's the case in those. So I guess the moral of the summary is that there's usually context behind some of the questions that you might see when you see candy bars or a certain employee's name or anything. And so the best practice is to ask. Don't make assumptions and just ask exactly what that's for. So we encourage anyone that is taking advantage of being out on the website to just give me a phone call or an email and let me know if there's any specific questions that they have. But it's great to let our community know all the great local resources that we use. So when we choose vendors, we always get the best pricing and the best quality of product. And so we have a lot of great local vendors that we're able to get that from in our business partnerships. So we're really excited about that. But with that, we're gonna have you, I don't know if it gets formally accepted, but.
Well, it's under action items, but there's
yeah.
no formal action here. This is
That's
just here
what-
for review and discussion.
Yeah.
And I know I'd like to thank you and your department for pulling this together. We get this information with board bills every single meeting, but sometimes pulling together the aggregate is extremely helpful in just understanding context, because it's easy to miss context when you see it 26 times a year. How does that roll up? And like you stated, it really helps facilitate discussions and questions, and I appreciate it.
Well, I would suggest that some vendors that would like to be vendors might see the list and say, hey, why don't we
Opportunity.
join?
Member Corcoran?
So I just had a question. Is this report like easily created, or does this take time for your staff?
It's minimal time.
Okay.
Yes.
And
Yep.
is this helpful for the audit? Is this something that the auditors actually need to
The
look at
auditors,
this?
we do as part of the audit, every year, always in the audit, you can read in the management report our top 10 vendors.
Okay.
So that's something that we do on an annual basis. But yeah, beyond that, no, we don't go any further down than that on a
Okay.
normal audit procedure.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying, it's a nice report to have. I just didn't know if it took a lot of time and if it's used in more ways that helps your staff or
Yep.
you or.
No, I
things
think
like
just
that.
making sure that context matters and we don't, watch the community and make sure that everybody understands the why and what we're using the items for is really important. And again, it's part of
Yeah.
all funds.
No, and it's,
So
and
debt
we are,
service and
yeah,
other.
I mean, it's open
Yep.
for everybody. Did you get any questions from community members on any, if this gets uploaded to the website, would us? would a
Yeah,
community
last year,
member-
so I'm gonna use last year as a better example because it did just get
Just
uploaded
curious.
recently, so
Like,
there
does
might be
somebody
more
really look
questions
at
coming
this?
in the next couple days, but, I did not based on last year's,
Okay,
so.
okay. I was just curious, because I mean, it is a nice consensus, it's nice to see, but
I just know staff takes time, and if
Yep.
it's something it's good
Yeah,
for
it's
your
not something
staff.
that we ran before the process,
Okay.
but again, if it's helpful, then
Yep.
we want to make sure that, the community knows. We are diligent in our approvals, so as
exactly.
part of the audit, you're aware that we have our segregation of duties and our controls, internal controls, that we go through in June every year, and so they're going to double check, are things approved in an appropriate manner, our two
Right.
directors looking at all the purchase orders and all of that, and line items. And so, yeah, we don't have anything, I approve all POs, and so I'm looking at every line item and calling with any questions. Mr. Caldwell got an email last week. So, they can go ahead and, it is, we feel confident in what we purchase, how we purchase it,
course.
and all those
Yes.
internal controls. So a vendor list like this is not a problem at all.
Well, thank you so
Yeah,
much
I
for the
Yeah.
report. Yep.
Yeah.
Member Tyson?
So, I checked with 4 districts, and none of them do a vendor review like we're doing at the board table. Do you know of any that do?
I do not. So I did check in with several of my counterparts. I do not. So that's.
Would this be something that could be done in finance? If there was something to review, and if they saw something that the board needed to take action on, they could bring it? Would that work as well?
Yeah, I think it, again, depends on the, which audience, what we're looking for, and
Right.
making sure that everyone has the full picture of what the, what the vendor's used for, I guess.
Right.
Yep.
And last year, this was put on to do, and I had never done it because I look at the board bill run every twice a month, and I've been on finance where things are discussed. So wouldn't it be better just to have it in finance and review it in finance than to have it at the board meeting? I mean, we offended some of our vendors last year, and they came forward when we did it. So I talked to the member chair, and he said we're not going to go down that path this year, so I'm a little more comfortable with it. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I would say that it's definitely up to the board, what they would prefer to do. So the finance committee is a board committee.
Up to the
And
full
so,
board?
yep, up to what the directive is to where you want the information out there. And so that would be, as I said, we're able to produce the report, and that's your prerogative of what you would like to do with the information.
And the other thing I wanted to address too is that, we're on the doorstep of the school year, right? You have a full plate. You're in charge of food service. You're in charge of busing. You have a lot on your plate. This, I wish, was not scheduled tonight. And keeping you here, keeping your focus off what's really important in the next week and the upcoming start of the school year. So if this is going to be a yearly review, I was never in agreement with that. I suggested last year that it was something that finance could look at, and if they saw something, they could bring it to the board. So I hope it gets moved to a different date. So you're not here and having so much on your plate for this time of year when you have a lot to focus on.
Thank you. I was able to route students while I was listening to Gail in your conversation. So we all are good.
Right.
But the key to that is, we can look to move it maybe a little bit later to not have the year to date and then the next one come out a full year later. That might be something that the public would appreciate because 2 different reports sometimes creates confusion on what the final numbers were, or somebody has one report and somebody has the final report and there are 2 different numbers, so they're trying to figure that out. Or again, we can just, move it a little bit earlier or whatever. Last year it was in July when the
Right.
reports were pulled, and this year it was a little bit later, and I know we've moved school board meetings around and stuff, so we can definitely, we make it all work. That's
So
what we
I'm
do.
just going to reiterate that I think it's best suited for finance and doesn't need to be brought to the board table and 70-plus sheets uploaded into the board packet. But it is good aggregate information, but I just wouldn't want to offend anybody again, and I think you have a lot on your plate this time of year, so.
Member
Yeah.
Atkinson?
Okay, good, my arm is getting tired here. Okay, thank you for doing it again.
course.
I'm happy to hear that it doesn't cause you and your team a lot of extra time to put this together and upload it for us. I find it very helpful myself. I would think that maybe the public, we're in a world where everybody wants data and people are curious, like, what do the schools spend their money on? And this is, I think, one very easy, sure shot, just like, there it is. That's what the school spends their money on. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong in having that information out there for people. I mean, it has, you know, looking over board bills, it's just a very dry read, and this is just so much more concise. And for me, myself, I mean, having heard myself ask questions about teacher retention and constantly hearing about, you know, we don't pay as well as the cities, you know, south of us, and maybe we're a little ahead of the cities north of us, and having concerns about recruitment, retention, and then seeing, you know, what we're spending the money on to cover these positions we can't fill, and working with Director Jacobson and you, hopefully soon, and you know, seeing what the number is that we're spending and how does that compute within our district, and seeing if there's anything we can come up with to fix it. But I wouldn't have that final number if I didn't ask you and then you didn't put this together, because I just can't go through every single board bill again and then start aggregating.
I just
data.
appreciate the questions and that too. Member Caslow and I had a great conversation once about T-shirts, and we're buying staff all these T-shirts, and then I say, well, it's the food service and the custodial uniforms. We're not just like, I buy this myself, you know. So it's those kind of things that, you know, to your point, yes, it is great to have aggregate data, and then sometimes you look at a vendor's name, or you look at, you know, a name of somebody who we've paid, and you have questions. And so all I just want to say is just make sure that we're asking the question about what it's used for and how it's used before we're making assumptions about doing that. And you and I had a great conversation, and I appreciated it so much, because we want people to ask the questions, right? We don't want people to make assumptions about candy bars or Chick-fil-A or anything like that. And so, you know, that as board members, you hopefully have the ability to, with the vendor list, if somebody calls you and says, hey, why did you pay Chick-fil-A $20,000? Well, we made $10,000 on that $20,000. So, and it went back into our sports teams, you know. So that's the kind of stuff that's just really important when we do something like this. So to say other districts don't do it, there is something out there that is a liability also when you put it all into one with how people can use the data and represent it.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, I would hope that nobody is assuming anything. I mean, whether it's somebody's intent with asking a question or, you know.
And that's the intent we have, right? Like
Oh,
that's,
yeah,
the
yes,
intent
I
is,
mean,
let's
it's-
get the question answered, because we're positive in our internal
Very
controls and what we're
unfortunate that
buying as a
there was
district.
so much
And
uproar about doing this the last time.
And I
And that's
called
been my
Larry
experience.
Martini, your predecessor, very often when I was new. You've got to find out, you get your questions asked.
Yeah, and that's been my experience with this report. I've had people reach out when they see something on board bills and they think it's anomalous. And then when we rolled it up into a single vendor list, it was easier to address that. And I've done a lot of digging through UFAR, so I mean, all of this data is out there, but it's data. Where when you roll it up into this type of report, now it's information, and you can act on information, you can ask questions on information. It's really difficult to do that with the raw data sometimes. So I just appreciate it. I would love to hear what the better time frame in the year to do this is. I thought summer kind of made sense because it was kind of the end of a
It's
fiscal year.
end.
Yeah,
You should tell us when it's a good time, Chris.
Yeah,
for
and-
you to run the
that's-
report.
but if there's a better
Really
time where
fast.
the report can be cleaner,
Yeah.
and
Like
it's just,
October,
Well, as is,
November?
that's the,
Yeah,
when we
then-
close the books in November, it has to be
Yes.
done by Thanksgiving is pretty much the time frame
November.
on an annual basis, although Thanksgiving
okay,
moves,
so,
but.
and my memory was off. I thought we did it in August last year, so that's why I scheduled it for August this year. But
December 1st.
I'm more than happy to shift it to December if that's a better time period where the data is.
We just
or the
wouldn't create
information
the
can be
two
more
reports,
useful.
you know, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know that we need two.
Yeah.
And I think when you have the partials where it's the, how did we label that on the agenda, where?
Year to date,
What's the year-to-date, that can cause some confusion because
right.
just the way our budgeting works is we spend a lot here at this time of year, we spend a lot there at that time of year. So the year-to-date can be a little less useful. But, yeah, we certainly want to work with you.
We're not missing much, you know, like, it is summer still, so we're just closing closing stuff and paying the final bills. The big thing is construction. So again, you see some of our top 20 vendors, at least 3 of them were construction.
Yeah.
So again, that's happening a lot in
That makes
June.
sense.
That's gonna be your big kickoff where you're getting those $750,000 bills from somebody in a construction site. So that'll be, where it can sway
Yep.
quite a bit from the time frame in August to the close of, getting all those
For
paid and
sure.
everything. So, but yeah, December, and again, we can work through that. Always happy to give any data at any time, and, but December obviously would create a time frame that we wouldn't have to run 2 reports and correct, kind of get that final version
Okay.
the next year.
Well, I appreciate that, because December is typically a little bit slower for
It
us. And
is.
then boardroom too, so that could be beneficial.
Yeah.
But, yeah, tremendous value. Is there any other discussion? There's no action on this item. It's,
I just want to
Member
point out
Castle.
that writing the database query takes time. Pushing a button to actually have the data, it's like that.
yeah.
Yeah. We do have to go through the data, so there are some data privacy concerns, and there is some items that are omitted because of that problem. So we do have to go line by line and make sure that we have excluded certain things.
And there should be something in the database that you can just automatically filter that out.
So it does depend, because some people are paid from multiple different codes, so you don't want to exclude all of them, you want to
The codes.
exclude part
Yep.
of them.
Yep. I've written
So.
many database queries, and
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we're
And again,
using
the work-
Cognos,
the
so
work is
maybe you're better at Cognos than I am.
I used the SQL query. So.
Well,
that's
that's
not-
the data, how we get
different
pulled out
ballgame.
is Cognos. Perfect.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very
thank
much.
you.
Staying so late tonight for us.
All right, and finally, it brings us to 7.2. Director Lorenz, welcome
She
back.
also had to stay a
Yes.
long night for you.
So ridiculous.
Good evening, board members, Superintendent Jacobson. Last fall, you approved a course for our secondary called AP Business and Personal Finance. We approved that course, or you approved that course as a half-credit, one-semester course. Since that time, our staff has been busy planning, preparing, gathering more information from AP College Board. The course description is included in the agenda. It's also become clear, as they've done that planning, that it's probably better suited, or actually almost necessary, that it becomes a full credit course at a full year. The content hasn't changed at all, just the timing and the reality of mapping out and planning. It's just become clear that a semester or a half credit course wouldn't be sufficient time for students to get what they need to get out of the course. As a reminder, we do have a statute requirement to teach personal finance. This year's juniors are the first cohort or class that will need to graduate under the new requirement. The course that you approved is on the books, ready to run next week, with very little scheduling impact. And with your approval here tonight, we would be able to shift that to a full year experience for the students who are already enrolled. And that would be our recommendation.
Wow, move to approve 7.2.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any questions for Director Lorenz while she's here?
Well, I just want to say, when I was looking through it, I thought, well, phew, like for these kids, like they need to really, this is super important information, learning to do. I think is great that this is what you're doing with it, or asking to do with it, is increase it to the full year. I just think that helps so much with such important information, to give it over a slower time, however way you want to phrase it, but I thought it was great, so. it was-
More comprehensive.
Yeah,
Yep.
so,
Yeah.
I'm glad.
I concur.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Any additional discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Brings us.
Thank you.
We should have done that.
I see no new business on the agenda, therefore I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second?
Motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?